Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Maricopa County Board of Adjustment. This morning, ask Rosalie to please do the roll call.
Chairman Loper.
Present.
Member Ward.
Present.
Member Cardin.
Present.
Vice Chairperson. Member Schwartz. Chairman, we do have a quorum.
Thank you very much. We'll move on to the announcements. These are also shown on the slides on the screens. There will be a test afterwards, so we even paid attention to that. This meeting has been noticed in accordance with the open meeting laws of ARS 38-431. Agendas are available within 24 hours of each meeting in the Maricopa County Planning and Development Office and are also available on the Planning and Development website 1 week prior to the hearing at www.maricopa.gov/planning. With respect to the hearing process, cases will be considered in the order they appear on the agenda unless otherwise agreed to by the board. For each case, the applicant will be given a set amount of time to present their testimony. Any witness wishing to give testimony in a particular case shall notify the board of such interest. This is done by filling out a speaker's card. If you're here in attendance, make sure you get one of these. They're available from Rosalie on the end of the table. Or registering desire to comment as noted on the published agenda. Also, at the appropriate time for each case, the chair will be asking those attending in person and online who wish to speak to a case to raise their hand by clicking on that icon on the webinar screen. Staff will provide the chair with the names of persons who have registered and noted a desire to comment and those registered participants who have raised their hand. The chair will call on each named participant one at a time. Such testimony shall be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. However, the actual time allowed to testify shall be at the discretion of the board chair. The chair will conduct the hybrid in-person and virtual public hearing according to the bylaws and according to the rules established by the chair regarding public comment. Votes will be done by roll call vote only, and the chair will verbally identify the specific members responsible for all motions and seconds. Move on to the continuance agenda. Darren?
Mr. Chairman, board members, there's one item for continuance. Agenda item 5, there's been a request to continue that to December, so no action is necessary by the board. The applicant and the opposition have been notified.
Thank you. No action, as Darren mentioned, so we'll move on to, unless anybody has any questions. And seeing none, move on to the consent agenda. Turn that over to staff as well.
Mr. Chairman, board members, there's a single item on consent. It's BA 2022-031, known as the McKenzie property in District 4. It's variances to the rear east setback and hillside disturbance outside the principal building envelope for a 5-acre approximate property in the rural 190 zoning district at 22929 East Laurel Lane in the Fort McDowell area. There's no known opposition. The findings in paragraph 13 would be that it meets the statutory test, and should you move motion for approval, recommended conditions A and B.
Thank you very much. Any questions of staff of the consent agenda? If none, it is in District 4, but I'll entertain a motion for.
To approve the consent agenda.
We have a motion for approval by Member Ward. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Member Cardin. Rosalie, would you please do roll call vote?
Member Cardin.
Yes.
Member Ward.
Yes.
Chairman Loper.
Yes.
Chairman, that's an approval by a vote of 3-0.
Congratulations. We'll move on to the regular agenda. First item on the regular agenda is in District 2. It's BA 2022-034, otherwise known as the Crispus property. I'm saying that correctly. Staff?
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. Case BA 2022-034 is for the Crispus property in Supervisor District 2. The site is located at 30827 North 136th Street in the Scottsdale area in the rural 43 zoning district and is 43,560 square feet. The request includes the following: lot width of 101.47 feet, where 145 feet is the minimum required per MCZO 503.5.2. Next slide, please. The request would allow the applicant to move forward with building permit B 2022-6602 for a single family residence. Next slide, please. The applicant has failed to demonstrate that there is a peculiar condition facing the property because the non-conforming lot width of 101.47 feet was created as a result of poor lot splitting practices. Next slide, please. The subject parcel has been a part of 4 separate minor land divisions since 2017, which has resulted in a corner lot with a substandard lot width. Staff notes that while there is floodplain present on the parcel, its presence does not impact the lot width, and the lot configuration would fail to meet the zoning requirements without the presence of the floodplain. The applicant has not demonstrated applying the requirements of the MCZO to this property that these peculiar conditions are an undue physical hardship exists because there are alternatives available, such as recording a non-vehicular access easement along the western boundary of the parcel, which would alter the determination of the front lot line from the western lot line to the northern lot line. Doing so would render the lot width in conformance with the MCZO. The applicant has failed to demonstrate that the peculiar condition, physical hardship, is not self-created and that the lot width was a result of poor lot splitting practices. Next slide, please. If the board finds that the applicant has proven entitlement to the variance, then the board must state on the record the basis for that determination with findings and conclusion in a motion to grant the relief sought. In such event, staff would offer the board the following memorialization of approval. Variance approval establishes a 101.47 foot lot width on APN 219-40443A. At this time, I would be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Great presentation, Mr. Mueller. Any questions of staff?
I do not have any. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Go ahead and open the public hearing. As the applicant or applicant representative here and wish to speak?
Good morning.
Good morning. If you just provide your name for the record.
Yes, my name is Charles Nibley. I'm the applicant. I wanted to bring up a couple conditions with the wash. I don't believe that has been accurately identified. There has been a letter submitted by our civil engineer which states conditions of traversing the wash, as Joseph has stated, with the coming from the north access to the south. We feel that creates an unsafe condition. My civil engineer has completed a complete drainage report on the property and is intimately familiar with the quantities and volume of water flowing down the wash. The whole reason for this variance is to keep the access on the western side. As per the grading and drainage, we would like to try and keep that in accordance for the safety of the lot, for safety of downstream lots, and also safety of the home. Just to reiterate, the civil engineer on records, Plain Garner, does not feel comfortable with designing access from the north to the south across the underlying wash that runs parallel across the property. That's it.
Thank you. Any questions of the applicant? Comments? All right. Thank you. If you go ahead and stay close, we may have some questions for you in a minute.
Sure.
I also have a speaker request card for Fotini. I got this. Yeah, Fotini Crespus. Just give your name for the record.
Yes, Fotini Crespus. I just wanted to state that, I am the homeowner and soon to be homeowner. We're moving from California. I've already we sold our home. We're renting right now, process for selling our business. And I've also relocated 2 of my children here, which need my help. Also, my husband is currently dealing with some health issues, and we have been traveling to Cedars-Sinai in Hollywood, which is 2.5 hour, 3 hour trip for him to see doctors. And we reside in Palm Springs right now. And our whole goal was to move here also because my husband is planning to go to Mayo Clinic for treatment. So, this has been a big setback for us. So I just wanted to add.
I definitely appreciate that. Thank you very much. Any
Appreciate it.
questions?
Thank you.
Anything else? I'm sorry.
No, that's it. Thank you so much.
Any questions or comments of the other speaker?
Nothing from me.
All right. I don't have any other speaker request cards. Is there anyone in attendance today that wishes to speak regarding this project? Or this case, I should say. David, is there anyone online registered to speak or raise their hand?
We're not aware of anyone online.
Thank you. I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and open it up to the board members for discussion and or a motion. This is in District 2.
Chairman Loper,
Yes, sir.
not my district, but I don't believe, but I'll just throw out some initial comments. With the wash, this appears to be a pretty good reason for a variance in this specific case. I do note there is a letter of opposition that seems to simply state, it seems like this would be a unique variance, and just my opinion, and I still think it is too much, but just my opinion. And I can appreciate a feeling of neighbors wanting to make sure. I imagine the purpose of that comment is to want to keep some distance in building pads, and but it just seems that without this variance, this property otherwise becomes unusable. And so I am generally in favor, and I'll even go as far as making a motion to approve this variance request.
All right. Thank you, Member Cardin. We have a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second by Member Ward. Rosalie, would you please take the roll call vote?
Member Cardin,
Yes.
Member Ward,
Yes.
Chairman Loper,
Yes.
Chairman, that's an approval by a vote of 3-0.
Congratulations and best of luck to your husband and family. Thank you. All right, move on to the next item on the agenda, which is BA 2022-037 in District 3, the Gettle property.
Good morning, Chairman Loper and members of the board. Agenda item number 3 is for subject case BA 2022-037 for the Gettle property, which is a variance request for an RU43 zone property located at 33804 North 3rd Drive in the Desert Hills area in Supervisor District 3. Approving this request would have the effect of allowing for a 20-foot front setback from the northeast, a 20-foot side setback from the northwest, and a 34-foot maximum height on a hillside encumbered parcel to allow for the permitting of a new single-family residence and detached casita. Next slide, please. The just over 1 acre lot was created as part of a parcel split in 2017 and is of a home plate configuration. As both parcel lines extending from the ingress egress easement to the north are equidistant, the applicant has chosen the northeastern lot line to be considered the statutory front and has drawn a vehicular non-access easement along the northwestern parcel line. The proposed casita along the northwestern parcel line would be allowed without a variance as a detached accessory structure, but parts of the proposed primary residence extend into the setbacks. Next slide, please. The parcel is 100% encumbered by hillside conditions. In 2017, a different applicant applied and received a variance to allow for a disturbance of up to 9,980 square feet outside the buildable envelope for the development of a lot to the northwest and in preparation to develop the subject lot. At that time, the applicant for that variance did not request for any variances to any required setback standards and were intending to build within the existing RU43 zoning standards. While that applicant did file and receive a permit to grade the site, they did not proceed with filing for building permits for the home. Next slide, please. It is staff's conclusion that this project does not meet the statutory requirement for a variance as the lot conditions were self-created in line of title. The lot was created as a result of a poor lot split. Still, staff does believe that development of the lot would be possible without a variance to meet the required setbacks, and it would be a matter of design to meet those setbacks. Thank you for your time, and at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Landis. Great presentation. Is there any questions of staff at this time?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Go ahead and open the public hearing. Is the applicant or applicant's representative available?
Yes, Chairman Loper and board members. George Everland, Everland Engineering, civil engineer. I also have Mr. Dave Gettle. Him and his wife Shelley are the property owners. And I'll just have him make a brief introduction and then I'll go into the technical details.
Good morning, everybody. My name is David Gettle. I was born, raised up, and grew up in the Valley. As George has alluded to, that I'm a long-standing resident and my family has a long distinguished presence here in Phoenix. As a young adult, I joined the military as a nurse. And even though I spent 21 years in service, my wife and I have always maintained a home here in the North Valley. It is the place where we started a family and we have raised our children. I have a great love for this area, especially the North Valley Desert. I think that's probably what drew me to this lot and why we're here today to talk about it. This particular hillside lot presents several obstacles that we've had to consider. Those same obstacles were faced by the lot's previous owners when they too had to come here and apply for similar variances that were granted, ones that we're seeking today. Because of our love of the desert, my wife and I have taken the important steps to hire an architect, a civil engineer, at great pain, many hours of anguish studying this lot. We believe that we've come up with a home design that's less disruptive and preserves more of the natural hillside landscape than the previous owner's plans. We've even met with our immediate neighbors and we have their approval for what we are presenting here today. Even though our design is smaller in square footage and preserves more natural landscape than the previous plans that were approved, we still face the same building obstacles. We still require some variances to be able to move forward with this design. With that being said, I'll let George present those obstacles and go over our design for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gettle. Are there any questions or comments from Mr. Gettle at this time?
Nothing from me. Thank you.
I do have one. Yes, thank you for your service. And the Gettle air conditioning, is that?
Well,
I'm just curious. It's not germane to this.
Yes, it's easy to say, hard to spell. We all know that. But he can tell you it was his grandfather that.
So my grandfather and his 16 brothers and sisters came to this valley a long time ago. They started that company. Unfortunately, they sold it during the 70s. The name was trademarked and stayed with the company, but it's been a long-standing company in the valley. It's prospered and has done well and is well known today. But that company went away when I was a teenager, so I didn't have the opportunity to pursue that. But I became a nurse in the military, and that's how I spent my young adulthood.
Thank you. And again, thank you for your service. You can thank the radio commercials that we all know how to pronounce it correctly. Go ahead, George.
Okay, well, I'll skip through a lot of the first slides because I think they've been presented in the staff. So Rachel, if you want to just, that would just show the location in relation to Carefree Highway. Go ahead. Next slide. Again, that just shows the site. There's the church. This is right Carefree Highway and Central Avenue. And of course you come back and there's, I've circled a lot of the houses that have a similar type home plate shaped lots. Next slide. Oops, I think you went past one. Oh, no, okay, maybe not. Okay. Yeah, this shows the topography that exists on the lot. Now, this lot backs up to the south to the city of Phoenix, Sonoran Preserve. So they own that land and that's in a preserve area for the city of Phoenix. That shows the relationship of other lots, especially the two adjacent lots that you can see are a considerable distance, their houses from this property. Next slide. That's an enlarged view of that lot and the adjacent houses. They're the two neighbors that we met with, John and Veronica Harvey on the left northwest side and Gerald and Leslie Ty on the right side. And like I said, they had certain concerns and we met with them and addressed their concerns and they were very happy with the proposed design. they were not happy with the design from the variance that was approved in 2017. Next slide. This is again an enlargement. When those lots were developed, all 5 lots by one developer back in 2017, and they obtained the permit for a variance and a grading permit that included this lot, our lot. You can see the red line, that is the area that's disturbed from the previous grading when those other lots were developed. Okay, next slide. Next slide. This is what I'm telling you we're going to ask for. And then I'll explain why, and at the end I'll come back to this slide. What we are asking for is what I have highlighted in the shaded color. If we go to the bottom right, that's where we exceed the 30-foot height up to a maximum at one single point of 34 feet because it's a flat roof. So we don't deal with pitched roofs that get up higher. We designed it with a flat roof so that we could maintain the lowest profile possible. 252 square feet in that right corner, because of the way the topo drops off in that area, is the only area that we're asking for the height variance. Up in the front, what I again have shaded, which I think was 900 and some square feet, that is the total area that we're asking for encroachment into the primary building setback lines. And again, I think you can see we've shaped the house to try to fit the lot. We've done everything to condense it and working to those. Now this drops off, which we'll see in a minute, in the back. So we need the variance because we're trying to keep it as close as possible. And the further back, the more there's a problem with the height variance. And we're trying to preserve, you can see the setback lines in the hillside. Back in, I forget what year it was, I was actually on a task force when they did it, but the hillside regulations, one of their primary goals in section 1201 of the zoning ordinance was to preserve those areas in the setback. So those areas up in the front were already disturbed under the previous permit when they did that grading. We are trying to preserve that area in those setbacks like the ordinance intended. And in order to do that, we need to ask for those front yard variances. Again, you can see how far away those houses are on the 2 adjacent lots to us. Next slide. This is the approved plan for the grading plan that was approved for lot 104J on the northwest corner. Next slide, I'm just showing these for reference. That's the one for the lot on the northeast side, their approved grading and drainage plan. Next slide. That is the variance and the permit for grading on our lot in conjunction with the adjoining lot. And that was when they got a permit for the grading on that lot with the variance. Next slide. This is a compilation of those 3 together. And that's where this is extremely important, because I feel this is where it creates part of the hardship that we have. If you'll look at hard to see the green lines or the lighter lines, they are what the existing topo is as of today. That's our as-built topo that we did. If you look at the red lines, that is the topo and contours from the approved grading plans of all 3 parcels. I added that's why you'll see them handwritten. I added in numbers in circles. That is how high the existing ground is above what was the approved grading plan for all 3 parcels. You can see in the cul-de-sac, the top of the cul-de-sac, which is where paving stops, the cul-de-sac's not paved at this time. That's 4 feet too high. The rest of the cul-de-sac, as you come down, is as much as 10 feet too high, including the grades on the adjoining properties are as much as 8 to 10 feet too high. we're stuck with this. If that had been graded according to their plans, we wouldn't have, especially wouldn't have a height issue. So that's part of the challenges that we have to deal with that shouldn't have been there. And we're, of course, we don't have the right to go into neighbors' properties and regrade them to what was, how they got their clearances and CO, I don't know, but that's what it is today, and they're occupying those homes. Their houses are built according to their plans, but for some reason, the developer just never finished the grading coming down to what was graded on the plans. And that's part of the concerns the neighbors had when we met with them out at the site. They are very happy with what we're doing in order to correct part of that situation. Next slide. This shows some of the condition that our site was left. This is the neighbor to the northwest. That's how the ground was left going into our property. The property line is basically right along the toe of that slope, and then our lot is behind that. Next slide. And again, that's looking from the northwest across to the northeast. That's the cul-de-sac in the middle. That cul-de-sac is 6 to 8 feet too high. Again, we can grade it down. We're proposing to grade it down some, but we can't grade it down to what was the intended design back in 2017. Next slide. That again shows some of the condition of how this lot was left by the original developer of all 5 lots. Next slide. Again, that's where this was what's been disturbed. They've pushed that. Well, let me go back. As part of what was actually done, the hill that was there was cut down approximately 10 feet already. And then it was supposed to be another like 8 feet or so down. So they've taken that dirt and just kind of pushed it back onto this lot. And even though they had a grading permit, they didn't do it according to the plan. So that's the downslope looking down our lot. Next slide. Again, that's part of what you see how this was left. Again, that's where, the cul-de-sac is over to the right, and that's the area that's disturbed and what they've pushed, and that's the area that's, again, the way they left it. Next slide. This is the original plan, the variance that was approved in 2017. Number one, they have a sprawling house that does not fit the lot. Like there was no attempt to try to fit the house into the lot. They tried to make the lot fit the house. As you can see, the total blue area is what they propose to disturb. And you can see the extensive amount that goes into the hillside area. So that you can see again the red line of where it's been disturbed to date, and that's how much additional they were going to disturb under their 2017 plan. Next slide. This is our plan. Our plan, you can see we've designed the house to condense, and we put jogs to fit the lot. We have the area behind, you can see the setback line in the hillside that has not already been disturbed. We are disturbing 0. 0 from what has already been disturbed. The total with the original variance that was approved in 2017 was 17,040 square feet of new hillside area. We're disturbing an additional 11,400 square feet, but it's all within the building envelope. The new disturbance under their 2017 plan was 5,760 square feet. Ours is 0. As a result, we feel that we're meeting the intent of the hillside ordinance by preserving that area that was, in my point, the critical crux of that ordinance to try to preserve those areas. Next slide. we're not designing a luxurious monster house. Total is 3,436 square feet of living space. That's it. It's not an extreme house that we're trying to fit on the lot. It's a moderate house. Next slide. Oh, and while you're still, come back to that slide for a second. Okay, on there, what this been designed is a pretty sizable covered patio that's part of this. And that's because the applicant intends not to disturb and put a whole, put land hardscape and all that kind of, he's incorporated the patio area within the house. He's not going to, he doesn't intend to put a pool in. He doesn't intend to, grade or disturb that area behind there. It's been incorporated into the design of the house. Next slide. This is a view, the architectural rendering of, this is a view at the top from the front of the house, what you'll see from the cul-de-sac. When you come to the cul-de-sac, it'll appear as a one-story house. The basement level, what we've done is there's a basement level with a walkout, and that's the lower level. And that's why we've tried to fit the lot and design into the lot. That kind of shows from the side view, okay, here's the cul-de-sac is out to your right, and we come back and then it slopes down to his lower, which is a rec room, down at the lower level with, again, a patio underneath the above patio. Next slide. That's showing the rear. So there's the rear with a patio there. And it looks as a plain view here, but I think from the floor plan, you can see where it stepped in, stepped out. So you're just kind of seeing a faced view. And then again, that's the other side of what this would look like. Next slide. This again is the RV casita garage, and we don't need or are asking for any variance for that structure. Next slide. This is what the house will look like. This is a model house that Dave modeled our design after, that he saw that he liked, and which we've then modified to kind of fit the lot here. So this is almost what you'll see from the cul-de-sac. You'll come up and all you'll see is basically a one-story house. Next slide. That's a view from the back. The only thing is we'll have a basement with a patio, similar patio below this at the down on the hillside side. Next slide. Again, this gives you kind of a view of what the patio would look like, on the house. And that's where basically their outdoor living is going to be, that area, not the hillside area behind them. Next slide. Here again, I want to stress, this is all we're asking for. 252 square feet for the height variance, which will go from 4 feet to 0 within that little triangle. In the front, 900 and some square feet, or 928. That is the area, and again, we've tried to fit this. If we tried to push this back to meet those setbacks, we would be another 10 feet down the slope. We would be disturbing, and we would probably then have to go into the setbacks. To my opinion, this is a far superior design than what was approved under the variance in 2017. Next slide. Here again, this is our design. These are the areas we're preserving, those hillside setback areas. And that's our compact house. And you can see we're not going that much into there. So our opinion is this is a far superior design than if we had to comply with the setback and height requirements. Thank you.
Thanks, George. Very detailed presentation there. Are there any questions of the applicant or applicant's engineer? Mr. Everland?
I have none.
None. All right. Thank you. Hang tight. There may be something that comes up. I do have a question of staff on this. And I know it was somewhere in the staff report. The variance approved in 2017, that was just lot coverage, right? It didn't deal with.
No, so it was just for the disturbance outside of the hillside envelope.
Okay, thank you very much. I don't have any speaker request cards on this item. Is there anybody in the audience who wishes to speak? Seeing none, David, is there anybody on your end that's either registered or has raised their hand that wishes to speak?
Chairman, we're not aware of any speakers on the virtual side.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it over to the board members for discussion and or motion. This is in District 3.
Chairman Loper, this is Member Cardin.
Go right ahead.
So again, not my district, but I'll just share some initial thoughts. I can appreciate, I think there was again one letter of opposition, and their concern is that, you know, there have been a lot of activity seeking variances on this property, and seem to suggest that they feel like this ought to be able to be developed without a variance. I'll admit that I thought this was a great presentation that demonstrated some significant challenges with development if variances are not included, specifically the variances being requested. I also appreciate that the presenter is demonstrating how they're trying to limit the what's being affected on the property to allow the natural vegetation and the natural state of the lot, and recognizing this is a unique form of a lot or size and shape of a lot. I would move that we approve BA 2022037.
We have a motion for approval by Member Cardin. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Member Ward. And before I call for the vote, I just want to chime in, echoing everything the Member Cardin said. Great presentation. You showed that you really tried to reduce the impact. That's always appreciated with Hillside. With that, Rosalie, would you go ahead with the roll call vote?
Member Cardin,
Yes.
Member Ward,
Yes.
Chairman Loper.
Yes.
Chairman, that's an approval by a vote of 3-0.
Congratulations.
Thank you, Chairman Loper. Thank you.
All right, move on to the next item on the agenda, item number 4, which is BA 2022-040, Morning Vista Homes property. And turn it over to Mr. Johnson.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. Case BA 2022040 is for the Morning Star Homes property in Supervisor District 2. The site is located at 28709 North 158th Place in the Rio Verde area. The site is zoned Rural 43 and is approximately 1 acre. The request will include the following: proposed an interior side setback south of 20 feet, where 30 feet is the minimum permitted per Maricopa County Zoning Ordinance, Article 503.4.2. The request would accomplish the following: allowing a proposed custom single-family house to be built with an interior side setback of 20 feet to the southern property line. Staff received one letter in opposition to the request from the property owner adjacent to the south of the property with concerns over the reduced setback to their side of the property, citing privacy concerns. The letter of opposition is attached within the staff report. Based upon what the applicant has submitted and the staff analysis, staff finds that the request does meet the statutory test for variance approval. The applicant has demonstrated that there is a peculiar condition facing the property in that the location of a wash running through the northern half of the property establishes a unique topographical challenge to the construction of a single-family dwelling, thereby pushing the practical building envelope southward. The applicant has demonstrated that applying the requirements of the zoning ordinance to this property that has this peculiar condition creates an undue physical hardship that prevents the development of the property. If the proposed dwelling were to observe the minimum setback requirement and thus be further north, it would be located too close to the wash, such that should the retaining wall fail, the house would be destroyed in the event of wash flood. The applicant has demonstrated the peculiar condition physical hardship is not self-created in the line of title. and the applicant has demonstrated that the general intent and purpose of the zoning ordinance would be preserved despite the variance, because the variance would allow for the sustainable development of the residential use on a rural 43 zone property, which owing to the peculiar condition of the property would otherwise not be practical without the variance. And further, if the board finds the applicant has satisfied the statutory test and agrees with these findings or states its findings on the record, the granting of this variance will memorialize the following. Variance approval establishes a 20-foot south setback line for APN 219-37105F. However, if the board finds that any aspect of the statutory test has not been proven, the board must state for the record of the basis for that determination and a motion to deny the relief sought. At this time, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Great presentation. Any questions of staff?
Nothing from me, thank you.
Nope, I see Mr. Carden shaking his head no. Go ahead and open the public hearing. Is the applicant or applicant representative here? I believe they're online, but I just want to make sure they're not in the audience. Just online? All right.
I have them unmuted. There you go. Andre should be able to speak.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Andrei Paluktin, and I live at 9974 East Acacia Drive. Again, thank you very much for providing an opportunity to explain the particular conditions of this lot and the justification for this application. The lot is located in North Scottsdale area. This is a beautiful area, but some lots could be particularly difficult to develop. And the main reason for that, there are multiple washes there. And some of them are fairly big washes. Next slide, please. There are a couple of issues we're trying to address. The first one is the safety, and the second one is the sustainability. And I'm going to go through details probably in 5 or 6 minutes. Next slide, please. And if we take a look at the 2D flow for this particular lot, we can clearly see that there is a huge wash going roughly through the middle of the lot, and then going slightly north, and again going all the way through the wash. The maximum flow over there is about 168 square feet per second, which is a pretty big wash by any standards for this area. Next slide, please. The best plan we were able to come up with is presented right here. You can clearly see the red line is a retaining wall, and in some places it's anywhere from 6 to 8 feet high. And the green line is a house foundation. Again, given the conditions of the wash, that was the best we can come up with. Anytime we're trying to push a little bit north, it changes the flow and it starts moving the flow onto the neighboring northern lot. And it's something we absolutely have to avoid. And there was no way to move the house anywhere south because we hit 30 feet variance there. As you can clearly see, the house, the foundation of the house is it's just a few feet away from retaining wall, which in some places, well, 6 to 8 feet. And you can clearly see it on the cross section on the right upper corner here. So there is just very little distance from the house to the retaining wall. This plan was potentially provable, and the county raised a number of concerns regarding the safety and stability of this wall. The county wasn't happy about it, and I wasn't happy neither. Just imagine this huge wall next to the house foundation, basically just 2-3 feet away. Next slide, please. Okay, there are two. Safety was the main issue, and the second issue was there is a possibility that this retaining wall might change the natural flow of the water. If there is a wash more than 100, or if there is a flood that provides more than 168 square feet per second, and given that like the weather pattern is changing quite a bit, there is a chance that we might have really big storms there. Next slide, please. For the safety issue, we requested a second opinion from a geothermal engineers, basically the type of engineers that do work with anything that touches land and making sure that the land is stable enough. This opinion was attached to the application. In general, his opinion that the wall is stable enough. However, his major concern is that the house is imposing additional force on the wall. That wouldn't be there if the house was further away from the distance. Even though the wall is designed to withstand, his major concern is that if something happens to the wall due to unforeseen geotechnical or hydraulic conditions, or if for some reason we have more intense storm and flow gets a little bigger, he's concerned that if the retaining wall is about to fail, it's going to have catastrophic effect on the house. Basically, he says that there is a possibility that the house might partially collapse if the retaining wall isn't stable enough. If the wall collapses, the house might collapse. His suggestion was move away as far as possible. He said like 5 feet might do, or 5 to 10 feet, that should take care of this problem. Oh, next slide, please. Another problem there that we are facing, if we take a look at the water channel in this area, all of them would be probably something like a V-shape channel, and they've been there for 1,000 years. What we're trying to do, we're trying to block one side with a 90-degree wall. And basically, there is no way for water to move in this direction. Again, our civil engineer thinks that if we have bigger storms, well, the county had the same issues. If we have bigger storm that we consider 100-year storm right now, there is a possibility that water starts moving to the northern lot. And that is something we're trying to avoid. Again, if we have another about 10 feet, we might change this water channel a little bit. So we might make it resembling like a natural channel before the wall starts. Next slide, please. If we take a look at the zoning ordinance, among many other things, it encourages safe and sustainable development. And that's basically what we're trying to achieve here. Next slide, please. So there are two issues we're trying to address with the 10-feet variance. First one is the safety, and that's probably the most important one. According to geothermal engineer and civil engineer of records, both things that the 10-feet variance will provide a buffer zone that will be sufficient not only to reduce, but both think that it probably, well, most likely it's a completely eliminate the risk to the house, like event of the failure of the retaining wall. And then 10-feet variance will allow us for the preserving more or less natural water channels. Next slide, please. And as a conclusion, the code provision clearly promotes sensible and sustainable development of residential property. Variance of 10 feet in a side yard setback is not in conflict with the purpose of the applicable code provision. And well, without the variance as requested, the safe and sustainable residential use cannot be achieved. Thank you very much, and I'm ready to answer your questions.
Thank you. A very detailed presentation. Thank you for doing that and putting it together. Are there any questions of the applicant by any board member?
I have none.
Mr. Cardin shaking his head no. Thank you very much. Hold tight. There may be something that comes up. Is there, I don't have any speaker request cards. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? And then turning it over to IT. David, is there anyone online who's wanting to speak on this item?
Chairman Loper, we're not aware of any other speakers.
All right, then I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and turn it over to the board for discussion and or a motion. This is District 2.
Chairman Loper.
Yes, Mr. Cardin.
At the risk of sounding like a broken record, again, not my district, but we'll just share some additional thoughts. Again, I think a great presentation there. I do want to note a letter of opposition where they're asking that we preserve the 30-foot setback rather than allow the variance to 20 feet. And basically saying that with the lot size of the lot, I don't see why the building has to be moved closer to my lot by 10 feet. And I think this presentation did a good job of pointing out that the issue with the drainage there and so the wash. And so I would recognizing we love, especially living out in those areas, love to keep distance between houses, and that's part of the reason we're out there. We also have to deal with the natural landmarks and flow of flood, etc. And so I would move that we approve BA 2022040.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval by Member Cardin. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Member Ward. Rosalie, would you please take a roll call vote?
Member Cardin?
Yes.
Member Ward?
Yes.
Chairman Loper?
Yes.
Chairman, that's an approval by a vote of 3-0.
Congratulations to the applicant. Next item on the agenda is BA 2022-0553, the Thomas property. That's the one that's been continued. So move on to the next item, which is TU 2022-034, the Nelson laydown yard. Mr. Landis?
Chairman Loper, members of the board, agenda item number 6 is for subject case TU 2022-034, which is a temporary use permit request for the Nelson temporary laydown yard, an RU43 zone property located at 15953 East Lonesome Lane in the Gilbert area in Supervisor District 1. Approving this request would have the effect of allowing the continued operation of the Nelson laydown yard until May 31, 2023, per the terms of an executed compliance agreement between the county and Mr. Nelson to resolve an existing violation. Next slide, please. The Nelsons have owned this parcel since 2017 and used it as a laydown yard for the storage of construction materials related to their businesses around that time. The active violation case against the Nelsons was filed in 2019 for the running of their business on the parcel without proper zoning entitlements. In 2020, the Nelsons filed for a special use permit to develop the site into an RV boat storage facility and also signed a compliance agreement with the county that they would obtain zoning entitlements or otherwise cease all operations by January 29 of 2021. Failure to comply with the terms of the first compliance agreement led to a hearing judgment against the Nelsons in April 2022, with the hearing officer ordering the Nelsons to obtain a special use permit or remove all business property from the premises no later than November 28th, 2022. In July 2022, opposition from the neighbors in the town of Gilbert ultimately led to the Nelsons withdrawing the special use case. This led to the Nelsons entering into a second compliance agreement with the county in September of 2022 to allow for the continued commercial operations while the Nelsons clean the property via the removal of all commercial business equipment, materials, vehicles, and items non-accessory to a single-family residence no later than May 31st of 2023. Next slide, please. It is staff's judgment that honoring the terms of the compliance agreement through the approval of the temporary use permit is the best path forward for all parties. Staff agrees that the site is inappropriate for use as a laydown yard, given its adjacency to denser residential subdivisions within the town of Gilbert and rural zone properties within Maricopa County jurisdiction. To that end, staff has put reasonable conditions on the usage of the yard, including a limiting of work hours, eliminating access and usage of the site beyond these work hours, and enacting reasonable penalties through the executed compliance agreement if these terms are not met. This will allow the Nelsons to wind down operations on the site and either seek appropriate entitlements or bring the property into compliance with the existing Rural 43 zoning standards. It should be noted that staff will not support any continued use of the site as a laydown yard past May 31 of 2023. Thank you, and at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Landis. Great presentation again. Any questions of staff at this time?
I do.
Go right ahead, Member Ward.
The hours of business operation shall be 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. daily. Is that Monday through Friday or?
Yes, that would be Monday through Friday.
Thank you.
Any other questions of staff at this time? All right. Go ahead and open the public hearing. Is the applicant or applicant's representative here to speak?
I'm here.
Okay. If you could come on up and just provide your name for the record, please, and do your presentation.
I'm Cody Nelson, the property owner. So like you alluded to, we've been there for several years. I don't know if you want the speaker cards, possibly. So we have been there several years. It's only became an issue in the last, well, conducive to your timeline there, you know, and since the boat and RV storage was proposed. So we had an equipment issue in parking equipment. We looked for third-party representation to be able to do it, and that's when they elected to go for the boat and RV storage, thinking that that would be the shortest path to achieving the goal. And I think that's what kind of caused panic, and we were not able to obtain that goal via the third-party representation, and not even really what we wanted initially. So we dropped our third-party representation, kind of self-representing ourselves, and the panic, I think, was derived from just rezoning it as a commercial place, being its location. I don't think they wanted that, but our operations being there, it doesn't affect our immediate neighbors. We have some letters. I don't know if that made it into the presentation. Okay, they did. So I like your aerial map that you showed, and possibly we could go back to that so I can give you specific locations of some of the properties that I would be addressing. But if you would like, we could, actually you have it up, so I will do that. I think it was slide 5 or 6 that you were at. It gave the overall bird's eye of the parcel layouts of the neighbors. While we're getting to that, I guess I'll continue with the story, but I mean, the rezoning for the boat and RV storage, neighbors, expressed concern with that, because if we ever sold the property, they don't know what would happen to it. There you go. So we do have a couple letters. You said they were in the presentation, but what I just want to point out, just by reading the letters, I don't think you'll give accurate representation of where these letters came from. So this will help serving in that purpose. So if you can see to the left of our property is the brown square box 304-76015Z. If you go just to the west of that, which would be left, it's the same property owner from 304-76697. I was unable to attain a letter from him, but I'd have written communication from that neighbor that we pose no problem. We have right where your green writing is actually 2 other properties. It kind of looks like one, but above legal, you can see the line for the property split. So those are 2 neighbors right there that we do have letters from, and those as you said, made it into the presentation that I wasn't aware of. And then we also have, well, it's really hard to point out because some of these are not identified. So the immediate neighbors to the left, they do not have an issue with us. The main issues are coming from the cul-de-sac where the properties turn white, and it's actually they were annexed into Gilbert. So I think, they kind of left Maricopa, and a lot of their issues, I don't know if anybody made it, and maybe if I could discuss those now. I think a lot of that was visibility, how we were pulling in and out of the property, which I guess steps have been taken to mitigate the concerns, like putting a speed bump, high visibility bubble mirror so people can see ingress and egress. So there hasn't been any issue with that, but maybe we can just continue on with the PowerPoint presentation that was provided, and that will just give you a good idea of the neighbors that were in support, right? So what we're doing there, we're doing traffic signals, street lights, communication towers, and utilities. If you would please advance to the next slide. Introduction, North Star Communications is owned by an Arizona native, myself, Cody John Nelson. We're a family first company composed of local employees that service existing installation of new infrastructure. North Star is considered a first responder group for emergency utility repair in the event of system critical failure. This year, North Star was successfully performed fiber optic repairs, built several traffic signals, upgraded dozens of cell towers in Maricopa County, working with Town of Gilbert. Fiber optics go down, car collisions, they hit street light poles, things of this nature. This year, I already read that. Most operations are performed in the day from 6 to 6 p.m. with the exception of emergency response, and understand why we did that because it's an emergency. So the subject property is used as an equipment laydown yard, and our actual warehouse office is located at 2100 South Douglas Drive, Chandler, Arizona, and this is by the Chandler Air Park. If you guys are familiar with the area, it's right across from Home Depot right there. Our primary goal was to secure a 12-month TUP. I heard that, May is the consideration here today, so that's probably a sticking point. And I also heard some hours of operation presented. I respect those hours that were presented, but I would like to add in the fact that those starting times and ending times are kind of rush hour. And that's when a lot of, families are coming home and going to work. So those being a limited window, I would ask for a little bit of an expansion on that because, regular business hours dictate that we're out past those hours. And not only that, if we're a little bit flexible on the start and end time, I think it would be a benefit to the traffic flow and, the neighbors coming in and out because, most people are 9 to 5. So it would definitely probably be beneficial. Not sure where those hours came from, but we can continue with the slide. Truth, a little funny slide, but we like the phones, we like street lights, we like internet, we like traffic signals. I wonder where they keep all the equipment that builds and services it, right? So everybody likes these amenities, but nobody wants to see the tractor or the water wagon or anything like that, but all this equipment has to live somewhere. There's no, yes. And then we identify some of the equipment here in this slide just to give you guys visibility. So you have mini excavators, box trailers. That's where equipment goes, trucks to pull it, water wagon, digger derrick, and that helps set poles. But that's the type of equipment. If we can advance to the next slide, please. Our plan for being a good neighbor. Signs will be posted with contact info. That way, if there's any type of issue, there's no problem with getting a hold of somebody so we can address any potential issue that they might have. I'm in pretty good contact with all the neighbors, so there is some people contesting, I believe, so, but I do believe by posting at least a phone number, it's a step forward in the right direction. You could do the next slide. So our area of focus for addressing concern would be traffic, and I think maybe motion sensors, the mirror we did. So when we had a concern about traffic pulling in and out, because one of the neighbors had concern that they had a lack of visibility. So within 24 hours of receiving that complaint, we put, a mirror. So we are actually doing something. We're not listening to the complaints and having no action. We're actually, promptly taking care of the issues and trying to do our part to, be a good neighbor. We have a 5-mile-an-hour speed limit sign posted. So traffic, we know is a concern that, we have steps that we can mitigate, and then just communication with the neighbors, which is posting the contact information, address all concerns in a reasonable fashion in a timely manner. That's the plan. And, if we could add on to that, that would be great. And in summary, it's our intent to be kind to the neighborhood and bring additional benefits with our presence that would not otherwise be available, such as security and neighborhood support. We're in a little county island there. We're all on a water well. When the water well goes down, we helped replace the utility pole with all the electric that powered the well. We've helped a neighbor bury their dead horse. We've helped another neighbor with his irrigation, getting new irrigation pipes in there. So it's not only just do we are there and don't acknowledge the people around us, we hear their concerns and we're proactive and being a good neighbor, right? So in the 5 years of ownership, there hasn't been any issue to date with direct confrontation with any neighbor. And I think some of the letters will support that. Our goal is to maintain the neighborhood and town in a condition that we feel is acceptable for our own families. I was born in Maricopa County and I've lived here all my life. So we don't treat the neighborhood as home. So I believe that does wrap up the slide. And contact information and possibly those letters are to follow. That would be the end of the PowerPoint presentation, but maybe they're attachments. That's all.
We did receive copies of emails.
You did?
In our packets,
Okay.
correct.
Could I read those?
There's one from a Brittany Schiff and one from Christopher and Bridget Alwyn.
Yes, and those would be those two neighbors directly to the south that the green lettering was covering up to.
Yeah, if you wanted to, you could, but they're part of the record. I mean, they're part of the staff report and what was provided to us as we review the case.
Okay, I don't know if there's any opposition on that has logged in that maybe not have access to that. So maybe if we could answer that.
There was an email from Eric Monroe who talked about failure to notify. That's not you. Had safety concerns, ingress and egress, property damage, sound and noise, lighting, dust, visual appearance, and business operation and training. Those last two in regard to the bucket list. I'm not exactly sure. He may or may not be on to speak to this item if you want to wait to see if he wants to speak to it.
Yeah, and that's my fear too, that, somebody voices their concern, noise, dust, speed. So these are all things, there's a speed bump, you can't go too fast. And a lot of those other two neighbors, which we have 6 neighbors in support of us, 2 of them were actually able to get a letter in within 24 hours. I just think it would set the tone. That way it's not such negative connotation if there is somebody that chimes in with opposition.
Let's go ahead and move on to see if there's other speakers, okay. And then you'll have an opportunity to rebut it if necessary. And if you want, you can read these into the record, but we do have copies of them too.
Okay.
And there may be questions that come from those we have from you.
I have a question, if I may.
Oh, yes, go right ahead. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Can you please tell me how many entrances and exits there are to your property?
Well,
and which ones you use?
There is one to the north side that accesses Lonesome Lane, and that is a county owned road. That is the east and westbound. The tree at the top of the photograph with the blue line. So this is where we're coming in and out of. There's actually a curb cut. So the town of Gilbert, if you go east, designed the road. I'll just point here. There's a curb cut right there. So the town of Gilbert, when they did the Greenfield Road expansion, they designed it to have access there. But when we tried to go through the design and we took it back to town of Gilbert traffic control, they called for ingress, egress, turn lanes, road expansions, center median, about $2 million in off-site improvements to be able to open up this entrance. So we deem that as a non-viable solution.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cardin, you have questions of the applicant?
Yes, Chairman Loper, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Just a few questions regarding, even similar to what Member Ward was asking. Do you go farther west on Lonesome Lane than your western property line ever with any of your equipment?
Never.
Okay.
I'm sorry, unless not for business. If it
Sure.
is to assist with the well or help a neighbor, yes.
Understood. Thank you. Do you, the current temporary use permit is for to have everything, all this activity end by May 31. I imagine that there may be some neighbors with a concern that said, well, this was all supposed to be over on November, whatever the date was, November something of this year, but now they're seeking to extend it again. Do you intend with this temporary use permit, if this were granted, that everything would be done by May 31? Or are you looking at other avenues to try and still make this a use that you can preserve on this property?
That is a loaded question, and I'll try and be concise here. So yes, like I stated before, that we're over there by Chandler Air Park off of Douglas. So it is not our ideal situation to have operations and our administrative team separated. And, you know, I'm sure everyone's familiar with the real estate market. We've actually been looking for a property for the last 2.5 years where we can consolidate our operations onto one property. The problem is, you know, this is almost a 3-acre lot. And when you get into the industrial buildings, these tilt wall buildings that you see developing everywhere next to the freeways, it's either one or the other. You get a dirt lot or you get a tilt wall building with, you know, a parking lot with 20 spaces. You can't really, the market is just bad timing, I suppose. You can't find them together. So yeah, we've actually been looking for the last, you know, 2.5 years, and maybe I should have included some of that documentation in the PowerPoint. Unfortunately, there's a lot, it's been going on for a long time, so it's hard to know what to put in and what to keep out. But my idea was that if it extended past May, you know, that we could seek another another temporary use permit. But I'm just hoping that, you know, if you guys were kind enough to, you know, allow us to operate there until May, at least, you know, some of the neighbors could maybe accept us more, or, you know, just know that it's not going to be a commercial development place. It's not going to be rezoned. It's temporary use, and it's on, you know, it's issued on a, I don't know, a basis of good neighborhood rapport, right? So I feel like if we can't find somebody that, you know, to be completely transparent, I might be standing up here again seeking for, you know, additional time. But, you know, I would think that, you know, if there is that hard stop, you know, we could stand here again and talk about, you know, what's transpired in that, you know, during those calendar days. You know, have we been that good neighbor that we said we were going to be, or have we been more troublesome, you know? And at that point, you know, if, you know, it doesn't, you know, we could say, you know, the TUP cannot be extended. So it's really hard to say because we don't control the economy. We just live in it.
Hey, listen, I appreciate that candid answer. I imagine for those neighbors who are concerned about this use, that your answer, I don't know, is somewhat concerning to them, and maybe they would change their minds on the use or not. But I think from what I read in the staff reports, and I wasn't part of the negotiations of whatever agreement went on between you and the county to be able to continue to use it, to get to even to this point of having a hopeful agreement of using it until May 31. My understanding is that a future temporary use permit would absolutely not be considered, according to what I read in the staff report, if I read it correctly. Maybe we can get to staff and ask them after we're done here. But in essence, that this is an attempt to say you've done what you've had some time given to you to try and get the special use permit, which would actually allow for this use to extend into whatever that special use permit permitted. But apparently either that was abandoned or not approved or whatever happened. And so this temporary use permit truly is intended to be temporary, to simply say you do have until May 31 to move to a different location. And I heard what you said. You're saying, hey, maybe though with time, the neighbors will see that we really are good. Just if I counted, I think we have a total of 8 letters in opposition now, and I haven't talked to any of these people, obviously, but it sounds like you have a pretty significant uphill battle with trying to get any approval. And I don't think just practically speaking, continuing to seek temporary use permits are going to be a viable solution. It would ultimately need to be something more permanent. So having said all that, I guess I just want to make sure I guess I'm trying to be equally as candid as to what I understand the situation of this case is as it's presented to us. So any other comments on that, Mr. Nelson, just with what I've said?
No, I would, I guess, just offer one more note that, you know, I get it. You know, you guys have seen a lot of people up here pleading their case, and it's really hard to decipher what's what. And to say that I've been looking for properties for 2.5 years probably seems really excessive. But if you knew the market, you know, it would probably offer some, you know, it would be more of a warranted statement. But I mean, literally, I mean, and I probably should have included some of this in the PowerPoint too. I actually have 2 other people here with me, Carla and Ben, and without me saying it, I could invite one of them up here. Like we've been touring properties, you know, 2 just this week. We've signed a letter of intent on a property 24 hours ago. So, I mean, we're not just standing here saying it, you know, it really is not conducive to our operations to have, you know, the admin team and operations split in 2 locations. It's a problem that we're having that we're actively, you know, trying to cure. So it's not our intent to be there forever. And we're not just trying to run down the calendar as far as we can. It's a priority of ours to get out of there.
Thank you. Just one final question as it relates to hours. You heard, it sounds like for the first time today, a proposal of conditions being, if this was approved, to be from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. What, and you seem to have a little bit of concern about that. What would you propose if you were proposing hours?
Well, I just think with those hours, I mean, we're almost forcing a bottleneck, right? You know, everybody's got to be in by 5, you know. You know, when, you know, the lunch bell rings, what happens? Everybody gets in line. So, you know, I would say if it's a hard time like that, at least, you know, it would make a lot of sense on the neighbor's behalf to say, okay, about 6 or 7 p.m. That way, you know, it's not 5 o'clock. Everyone's, you know, trying to get down Lonesome Avenue or Lane, sorry. So I don't know, those time frames just, they seem to be at peak travel times. And I don't think that is what anyone would want that lives in that neighborhood. And I'm not even speaking on behalf of myself with that statement. I think I'm speaking for the community.
Understood. Thank you. Those are all the questions I have.
Any other questions, Member Ward?
Nothing from me.
I do have one. Other than for emergency response, are you a 7-day-a-week operation or typically just Monday through Friday for routine?
Monday through Friday, yeah. Yeah, overtime is always a budget killer. So yeah, Monday through Friday for sure. And then like, I don't know, a traffic signal goes out, they need an emergency fiber splice or something like that. So very low impact. You're talking, you know, one of the trucks and trailers that were in those photos and the, you know, guy going out to help restore a light, a traffic signal, stuff of that nature.
Definitely understood emergencies happen. All right, thank you very much. Hang tight, we may have more questions for you. I do have 2 speaker request cards. Carla Nelson, wish to speak and support?
I just had a couple of questions.
Oh, I'm sorry, it says do not wish to speak, but you can if you'd like.
But I actually did end up having some questions, so it worked out. I had a question as it relates to the duration of the temporary use permit. It was my understanding that during the proposed approval of the temporary use permit, within that time before May 31st, we would have the opportunity to seek a special use permit for the property. Is that still on the table?
Mr. Chairman, board members, that's, yes, they previously submitted a special use. They either need to cease and desist this operation by May 31st or have an approved special use permit.
I just wanted to make sure that that was still an option for us. I did also want to include with this particular approval, if anyone has a concern about an increase of traffic, we're not in any intent to increase our operation to grow within the means that we're in. So if there was a concern with an increase of volume, I just wanted to address the fact that it will not be more, it will be the same as it has been. And I might have some more questions depending on your speakers, your opposition.
Okay, we'll come to that if we need to. It's really the applicant rebuttal, but we'll get there if we need to. Thank you. Any questions of the speaker this time?
Thank you.
All right, move on. The next speaker request is Ben Webb.
Good morning. My name is Ben Webb. I'm work with Cody and Carla for North Star. Just wanted to touch on the hours of operation thing. When we say that we do emergencies, it's not hey, something that somebody's job site went down, we have to go fix it. It's a first responders network for E911, fire, police, everything when it comes to these cell sites. And I think an important note to make is that we're not physically doing work at this location, and we're picking up trailers, hooking up and going, right? So like Cody was mentioning, the 7 o'clock window, I mean, you have people that probably have kids that have to go to school and trying to get out of that gate and waiting for, our trucks or trailers. We would want to cause more of a nuisance, right? So getting our guys in there as early as possible so they can hook up and get out is really ideal. And just attesting to what he said, I myself been at properties for the last 2 weeks trying to secure a deal to try to get in a location where we can get all of our stuff off site and do it the right way. That's all.
All right, thank you. Any questions of the speaker?
Nothing for me. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Those are the only 2 speaker request cards. Is there anybody else in the audience who wishes to speak on this item? David, is there anyone online or Rachel that wishes to speak or has their hand raised?
Yeah, Chairman Loper, I have 2 speakers, Eric Monroe first and then Aaron Kitchen.
Good morning.
All
Can
right.
you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Good morning.
Provide your name.
My name is Eric Monroe. I am the neighbor closest to the property, due north, right across the Lonesome Lane there. My comments today would be in strong opposition to the temporary use permit for that extension. I think they maybe highlighted some of the key areas, but one of them is maybe some of the characteristics about being a good neighbor that I'd like to just sort of share with the committee is that a failure to properly notify. I know I've been monitoring this for over 2 years, asked to be notified. Having an 8.5 by 11 sheet of white paper taped to a wall, in my view, is not proper notification. I know I raised that with the zoning committee, but it would be my expectation that there's a better dialogue. We do want to be good neighbors both ways, but I felt like that was a failure to notify. The other concern is safety. I think those have been sort of discussed. Pedestrians, bikers right there on Lonesome Lane in Greenfield. Really, a lot of my concern are on the site ingress and egress. The site is not currently engineered for commercial trucks and equipment. And with there only being one entrance and exit, I'll share with you something. Even Monday this week, we had an 18-wheel tractor trailer making a delivery there. And because they couldn't go into the yard, they park on Lonesome Lane. And then they have a vehicle that's a forklift or a crane come out across Lonesome Lane and unload from the tractor trailer. I mean, this blocks traffic on Lonesome Lane in both directions, and obviously has noise and dust and other things with that. And so You know, I do have concerns about those tractor trailers on residential roads causing damage to the road itself just because of the excessive weight. In addition, it's a very difficult area to turn in and out of, and even their vehicles coming out of the yard often clip the trees that are on the subdivision property to the north. And so, you know, just from a property damage point of view, both from the county as well as the personal property, you know, they're trying to make do with what they have on their access, but I just really feel it's not suited for what they need to do there. They obviously are a great service and they provide, you know, a needed service, but it's just not in the right location. The other thing that I mentioned too was the use of, they have these bucket lifts. Occasionally I can see that they do training on the yard. So they're obviously raising up, you know, I don't know, to maybe 30, 40 feet as part of that training. They have also erected a light fixture that, to my knowledge from the zoning committee, hasn't been permitted. So I just feel like the other side of the story is that, you know, certainly it has been a long journey here. They've made some efforts, but it's just not a good fit. And even them incurring other things like the light fixture without a permit is not necessarily the right way of about going things to earn good trust and good faith. And so in the absence of that good faith, I'd really ask that this committee deny the application for an extension and enforce the remediation actions immediately. And really enforce you know, the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe. Are there any questions of Mr. Monroe at this time?
Nothing for me.
All right, thank you. David, go ahead with the next speaker.
Yeah, Aaron Kitchen asked also to speak. Go ahead.
Hello, can everybody hear us okay?
Yes.
Great. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak today. I have my husband, James Moss, here with me, and we are here to speak in opposition of this temporary permit. So I'm going to let him say a few words here.
Well, again, thank you. I just want to introduce myself. My name is James Moss. I've been a resident of Lonesome Lane for almost 42 years. I grew up in this area. I was a citrus grower here, and I've been a long-time resident of this very quiet, private street. Again, Lonesome Lane is a private driveway for the residents only. Our water use for the Greenfield Ranchettes prohibits any type of business being run on these lots. This is not a storage lot for big business and heavy equipment and big trucks. This is a private residence. The road is set up for private residents. The issue of getting in and out has become a problem. We can't get into our driveway. We can't get out of our driveway. The North Star contractor trucks block the driveway repeatedly, daily. It's really cumbersome, and it is a major safety issue. When we're on Greenfield Road trying to make a right-hand turn onto Lonesome Lane, their trucks are trying to get out of Lonesome Lane. They refuse to back up and give us the road. The road is not designed for two vehicle access at the same time. There's a curb right there that they seem to think that we can jump over while they make gestures at us and are voicing their displeasure that they have to back up out of our way. They do have a mirror right there. Shortly after they put their mirror in, it broke. It's just a chunk of mirror has gone out of it. They've been tearing up the edge of the road. The residents of Lonesome Lane paved that road out of our own finances because it's not a county road. It's our private driveway. We paved the road. They're chewing it up down there at their end. They've made no attempt to repair it. They ran over our 15-mile-an-hour private driveway sign. They put up another sign that's inadequate. We've had several incidents of them coming down here, not recently, but they've been here for a few years. They've continued to grow and bring more people, more trucks, more equipment in there. There's guys in there using our water every single day, 7 days a week. I don't know if somebody lives in there, but they're fueling up in there. There's as many as 30 or 40 trucks in there with all their people, all their private vehicles, and they're all in and out of there all day, every day. This is really a huge safety issue, and not to mention the question of whether they're permitted or legally using the water. I don't know what they're paying to Greenfield Ranchettes, but I don't believe that they're paying what they're supposed to be paying for the water that they're using from our private well. So again, this is a tremendous safety issue, and they have not been what I would call a good neighbor. A lot of what the owner said has been manipulated, and I have to disagree with allowing them any extension on this. Again, I've been a long-time resident here, and this has been one of the toughest situations that we've had to deal with in all of this time that I have been here. And I'm a little disappointed that the other neighbors didn't get on here to express their concern, because every neighbor that I have spoken to who actually lives here is very unhappy with this situation. The neighbor that lives to the due west lot of them is not a resident here. He has an open lot that is overgrown with brush. He doesn't live here. So if he's saying it's okay, he doesn't mind, well, of course he doesn't mind. He never comes here. He's not a resident. He has no home. There's no structure on that lot. So every other neighbor down the line here is having a tough time with this, and we're all very much opposed to this action. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker by any board member?
Nothing from me.
All right. David, is there anyone else, or Rachel, anyone else online who wishes to speak?
Chairman, we're not aware of any others.
Okay. The applicant, I'll give you 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Yeah, so there's a lot there. So, you know, when I come up here and speak, I really do keep opinion out of it and stick to a factual basis. A lot of what I heard was opinionated, and I would elect to read those letters to rebalance the scales, because I feel like there's a lot of malice being delivered in those statements. Absolutely. It sounded like the first opposition was to the north. So if you go back to the map, he's in the neighborhood, an HOA neighborhood that is not even connected to Lonesome Lane. So for him to speak about traffic and what that looks like on a daily basis, I'm not really sure where that's coming from. And then you have the other guy, the second opposition, Mr. Moss. I should have been writing some of this down. Again, he said that every person down the road is against us. That's not true. You know, if we're going to stand and deliver facts, let's stick to the facts, because we have support down Lonesome Lane. Absolutely. Property damage, you know, that's fine to say it. What is the property damage? Failure to notify, blocking the road, the light fixture. I get it. It's opinionated, and there's a lot of feeling behind it, but I think it's important that we stick to the facts for sure.
Okay. Anything else?
No, but I guess maybe the water use that, you know, we're sure that somebody, the water use, somebody might live there, might not live there. He may pay the water, may not.
Yeah, that's not really.
It's not
under our
factual.
purview. Yeah, it's not a consideration for this particular request. So
Understood. That's all I have to say.
All right, thank you very much. Let me go ahead and close the public hearing.
Chairman Loper.
Oh, yes, Member Cardin.
Sorry, I did just have a question for the applicant, just in response to what he's been asking. Is that all right?
Yes, absolutely.
So Mr. Nelson, just so one of the concerns was big trucks who can't enter the property, parking on Lonesome Lane. Does that ever happen where then they're unloaded with a something?
That's happened for one of the delivery trucks that was delivering to the AC company, the air conditioning business that's down Lonesome Lane. That's happened with the electrical business that's running down Lonesome Lane, which are two neighbors of the very last speaker, Mr. Moss. And it has happened with us, but that's short-lived because they're just wondering if that's the right place to access because it looks like there's so many businesses down Lonesome Lane.
So there are other businesses down Lonesome Lane?
Yes, there is.
Okay. And then, okay, that's it. Thank you, Chairman Loper.
You're welcome, Member Cardin. Member Ward, you have some questions as well?
I also have questions. Can you please address the statement that you have a fueling station there?
Yes. Okay. So there is a portable fuel cell there. There's nothing built in. There's no fixed unit that's there for.
Gallons does that hold?
It's a portable unit that's designed to be shipped out. Can you see that? Maybe 500. It's about 4 foot. I'll say a little bigger than maybe a pallet. So 5 foot by 5 foot. It's a cube.
And also, can you address the lighting?
The lighting, yes, there is a light for security purposes and acknowledging the neighbor's concern. This is my first time hearing about that, but being in the street lighting business, there are light shrouds that could be installed. So if we knew that that was a concern, you know, and that goes probably hand in hand with posting contact information, that would have definitely been addressed. It's our first time hearing about that, and a light shroud could be put there to, you know, handle that concern for sure. It will be.
I have a question of staff.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you please tell me are there laws regarding the fueling station? Restrictions?
Mr. Chairman, Member Ward, I believe there will be construction safety codes with how that is placed on a property. It has to have spill containment and items like that. I should point out, nothing that's out there today is permitted through the county for commercial operations. Industrial zoning or a temporary special use permit is what's needed. But along with any approval for something like that, there would be paving requirements, retention requirements. Obviously, before the use is properly established, there would be a permit, a construction permit at a minimum for the paving and grading that would authorize occupancy of that site for a commercial operation. Other requirements for the long-term plan of development zoning or special use permit would be access to the site and the improvements that would have to be coordinated with the town onto the arterial. Having said all that, I just want to go on record to make you aware and the people listening aware that we have a zoning violation for this use operating without proper zoning entitlement from a rural residential property. If the temporary use permit is approved, we will conduct a site inspection to make sure they have removed everything after May 31st. If this temporary use permit is not approved, we have set up a schedule that the south half of the property has to be cleaned by the end of February. So on March 1st, we'll go out there and see if it's cleaned. If not, they would not be in compliance with the terms of the code violation compliance agreement, and there would be financial penalties, daily fines, until that term is met. And then we would again go out there after May 31st, June 1st or something like that, and see if the north half has been cleaned. So if you approve it, the code enforcement's next step will be after May 31st. If you do not approve it, we are going to make sure the south half is cleaned within the next few months, and then the north half again by May 31st. I just don't want to have false expectations on prosecution of code enforcement from the neighborhood.
So Darren, you were saying the north half was also May 31st, the same duration as the temporary use permit?
South?
The south half, February,
Yes,
but the north half is May?
correct. In the compliance agreement, we established a schedule for cleaning the property. So I just didn't want to have false expectations of prosecution of a violation in advance of those dates.
So the temporary use permit has the effect of allowing the south half of the property a few extra months to remain in operation.
Correct. Or
kind of.
Presumably they would be pursuing a special use permit for a longer
Right.
operation.
I don't think Wayne liked my summary. I was just trying to.
Chairman, they have separately entered into a contract with the county. So you grant them a temporary use permit so that they are basically allowed to continue their operation, but they still have to follow the contract. So if the contract says the south half has to be cleaned by February 1st, it would be a zoning code violation because they're in violation of the contract without regard to the fact that they have the temporary use permit. As I understand it, the reason for the temporary use permit is basically to hold off them being penalized by the county while they either get off or get an entitlement.
Okay, thank you for the clarification. That makes
Mr. Chairman, for further clarification, the compliance agreement does treat the schedule of how the property will be cleaned differently for a temporary use permit approval, no temporary use permit approval.
Understood. Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other questions of the applicant? All right, again, hang tight. We may have some more. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. And then we will, I'm sorry.
I don't feel good without reading those letters. So is that window of opportunity passing?
Certainly you can reach it, get a copies of them from staff, have them send them to you.
Okay. Well, I've read them for sure. I just, I don't know if, part of the weighting decision is just based off of the opposition they called in. I would like, the supporters to be heard too. That way both halves are, equally heard.
Yeah, everybody who reached out to the county in response to this request was given they had that opportunity if they wanted to call in or come in attendance.
Okay.
We don't really have a mechanism at the hearing to reach out to someone and say, hey, did you want to be part of this or not?
Yeah, no, just I thought the letters were requested so their voices could be heard in their absence.
Well, and they certainly are. They're part of our staff report that we read so that we understand that there are letters of opposition. Yeah, on the opening, you did get a copy of the staff report?
Okay, excellent. I just want to make sure the decision makers are hearing both sides. Yes, sir.
Yeah, we definitely do.
you.
All right, again, closing the public hearing, turn it over to the board members for discussion. This is in District 1, Mr. Cardin, you got one in yours. I did want to make a couple of comments real quick. I'm a huge supporter of small business. And to me, it looks like you've somewhat become a victim of your own success. I don't know what you were like when you started, but it sounds like it's kind of maybe grown somewhat and made itself by that success more noticeable to the neighbors. I know you started a special use permit process previously, and it sounded like the town of Gilbert was opposed to it. You're not in Gilbert, but you're next to them. I feel like this needs to occur in a place that has the correct zoning at some point. Maybe that's not today, maybe that's not the end of February, maybe that's not the end of May, but I just feel, given the character of the area, and I understand there's other businesses down Lonesome Lane, that in order to keep your success and to keep the opposition somewhat at a minimum or maybe even non-existent, and as you said, combining your administrative operations with the actual operations themselves would be better for you. I do think it would behoove you to find a location that's not in an area like this with residential around it at some point. I do support the temporary use permit. The hours of operation, I think could be some discussion there. And I'll just leave it at that for right now.
Chairman Loper, thank you. May I share some thoughts?
Yes, absolutely.
So what you just expressed, boy, I feel the same. I also, I guess in my mind, the staff report actually does a pretty good job of expressing what I have been thinking as it relates to this case, which specifically are, this is not this use here, with it becoming maybe a little more intense, just feels like the wrong use in this location. And there is significant opposition, and I can appreciate why the neighbors, or some of the neighbors, I recognize, and I've read the 2 letters in support. I also note, and it sounds like those 2 letters of support are the 2 properties to the south of this property, which enter and exit. It doesn't look like they use Lonesome Lane as their mode of access to their property, if I've understood correctly. So I'm understanding there are more, there's more opposition just along those who use Lonesome Lane, and true, whether that's true or not, there is significant opposition, and it feels like that this use has maybe become a little too intense for this area, if it ever was appropriate in the first place. But also, I think you have to find a compromise, or some way that, again, in supporting small businesses that I think do some very necessary work that's needed in the valley, in the area. I don't necessarily feel like they ought to be penalized just in order to be able to get off the property. And it seems that this temporary use permit going till May 31, although not a great thing for the neighbors, and again, I appreciate that and even feel for them, I think it at least puts on an end date. And as expressed in the staff report, my feeling is the same, that I would not support another temporary use permit in the future, given the same circumstances. I don't know if facts change significantly. Maybe there's something to consider, but it seems like, if anything, the use may only get would only get more intense if allowed to continue here. That may or may not be true, but anyway, my general feeling is I would not support any future temporary use permit, but do support this one, just in a way of trying to find a little bit of compromise to allow this use to find another location, but then also not be penalized as they're moving out. So I would motion that we approve TU 2022-034. And I know that there are, in this unique case, conditions recommended by staff in paragraph 13 of the staff report. And as mentioned about the time, I would propose that it be from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. rather than 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. So that is my motion.
Thank you, Member Cardin. We have a motion for approval by you. Is there a second?
I will second that.
A second by Member Ward. Is there any further discussion? And I would just ask the applicant for a nod if 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. at least helps somewhat. Okay, good. He's nodding yes. Any further discussion by board members? If not, I'll call for the question. Rosalie?
Member Cardin?
Yes.
Member Ward?
Yes.
Chairman Loper?
Yes.
Chairman, that's an approval by a vote of 3-0.
Thank you. Good luck, and do work with your neighbors in the meantime.
Absolutely. That's our intent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate your guys' time.
Move on to the next item on the agenda, which is TU 2022-047 Rodeo and Entertainment in District 4. Turn over to staff.
Thank you, Chairman Loper and members of the board. Case TU 2022-047 is for the Gonzalez property, which includes a request for a temporary use permit. The request is for a rodeo and entertainment event scheduled for Saturday, November 12th, 2022. Next slide, please. The subject site is zoned Rural 43 and is located in the Tonopah area near 339th Avenue and the Buckeye Road alignment. The parcel is approximately 6 acres and is currently vacant. 2 prior temporary use permits, both for rodeo events, were administratively approved on the site earlier this year. The proposed rodeo is planned for Saturday, November 12th between the hours of 8 a.m. and 11 p.m. with up to 500 guests expected to attend. According to the narrative report, the applicants will have food trucks for which they have obtained permits. Sanitation facilities will be provided, as will tables, chairs, bleachers, and trash cans. A security company will be hired for the event and will assist with parking and traffic control. Parking will be provided on the western half of the parcel. Illumination will be provided, and overnight camping will not be permitted. The applicants are coordinating with the Buckeye Valley Fire Department, the Buckeye Valley Fire District to provide first aid and fire protection for the events, and are in the process of obtaining a special event permit for McDOT for access to county right-of-way. Staff received 3 letters in opposition and 6 in support. The letters of opposition expressed concerns over noise, pollution, traffic, late hours, inadequate security in facilities, and a general disregard for the concerns of neighboring residents. However, the letters of support attest that the prior events were well organized and professional, with adequate amenities, security, and traffic control provided on site. They did not experience issues regarding noise, traffic, or litter, and they further attest that the prior events provided a safe and family-friendly environment for the surrounding community. Staff believes that the applicant has satisfied the requirements of MCGO Article 1302.2.2 regarding temporary events, and as such, staff recommends approval of the TUP subject to the conditions of approval outlined in paragraph 13 of the staff report. And at this time, I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Schlim. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Any questions of staff at this time?
I have none.
Nope. All right, we'll move on. Open the public hearing. Is the applicant or representative available? Please come up and provide your name and go forth with your presentation.
Good morning. My name is Morari, M-E-R-A-R-I. Yes, I know I'm tiny, sorry. My name is Morari, M-E-R-A-R-I. Last name Botello, B-O-T-L-L-O. He's my uncle. He's actually the property owner. I am representing him in a way just because there's a little bit of language barrier. And I just wanted to, we did provide a slideshow. We read the letters of opposition. The people were concerned about the trash, which we try to pick up as much trash that night, but we're not able to because it's sometimes so dark, to see it. But we do go to the next day, like Nicholas explained. We have been approved 2 different rodeos this past year, which is fully insured. We have never had any issues with authorities. We have never seen no police coming in or shut it down because we try to be respectful. We do request it for 11 just because of the weather. The one in March was approved, I believe, until like 9 or 10. But on June, we did request it just because it was too hot and we wanted to make sure people were comfortable. There was no incidents. There has never been no incidents that happened. We do hired a private security that always help us with the traffic, with parking, and to make sure that there's no incidents. We do always contact the Buckeye Valley Fire, to make sure we have a contract with them for paramedics or in case of any type of incidents that we may occur. We have always do get fully insured, like a general liability in case if there's any incidents in there. we always follow any restrictions if there is, like time with the permits. We are trying to working on gathering estimates so we can gate it, just because we were just notified by our neighbor on the east side, which is the closest one, that there was, I believe, some gunshots, or people sometimes go to a property and throw some trash. And we just wanted to make it to the knowledge. If you can please go to the next slide. There are some pictures. As you can see, there's not a lot of trash, but you can see some. And we always try to make sure we pick as much as we can. Next slide, please. I did wanted to provide a picture of a trailer, because we'd always take big trash cans or trash bags. And this is where we get it, so we can go and dump it. Next, please. Again, it's just showing their closest neighbor, which is on the side, which is the nursery, which he provided a letter supporting, and he's actually the closest one to us that we would have feel it's the one that would have any issues with the noise, which we always put the noise like on the other end to make sure it doesn't bother any of our neighbors. Next slide, please. Like I said, we'll just show you how it's set up, and the trailer that we always take water to make sure that there's no dust or anything. And next slide, please. And this is just some pictures of showing you all the sides of the lot. And I believe I provided 2 videos. Do you mind going to the next slide? Are you able to click in it? This is basically just showing you around. It's not gated. We're working on it. It is 6 acres, so we're trying to gather as much estimates as we can to have any issues. Next slide, please. Do you mind going to the next slide, please? That's a video as well. I believe one of our opposition's letters were talking about the dust or the road. As you can see, of course, the road, it's not pavement, but there's limited dust. And we were taking some trash cans because they were talking about some trash that it was there, but we couldn't find anything. We cannot control if strange people go in there until we gate it. I'm ready if you guys have any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Are there any questions of the applicant?
I have none.
No. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll call you back up if you need anything, if you don't mind just sitting close. All right. I don't have any speaker request cards on this item. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to speak? Rachel or David, are you aware of anyone online who wishes to speak?
Chairman Loper, we're not aware of anyone online.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. This is in District 4. I do have a question really quick of the applicant. You're aware of the conditions staff is proposing for the temporary use permit, and you're in agreement with those?
I'm not, if you guys can.
Could you read those out loud real quick?
Oh, yes, and I believe the staff report was made public on the agenda center, but the conditions of approval are outlined in paragraph 13. There are, how many conditions are there?
For way of explanation to the young lady, the conditions speak to the site plan that you submitted, the narrative that you submitted, that you'll comply with those.
Oh, yes.
That the temporary use permit is only authorized to the Heliodoro Arcos Gonzalez and Sonia Bustos family.
Yes.
There is a standard stipulation that you waive claim for any diminution in value that we've approved the temporary use permit should get approved. It's authorized for an event to take place only on Saturday, November 12th, from 8 a.m. to 11 p.m.
Yes.
And then it speaks to traffic control is your responsibility.
Correct.
There will be no road closures or obstructions.
No.
The temporary use does not give approval to construct new buildings on site.
Correct.
After abandoning the temporary use activity, anything that you erected for the temporary use will be removed. And any food concessions must be licensed, permitted by the Environmental Services Department.
Yes, which we have provided for the food truck.
Alcohol is not permitted unless a liquor license is obtained through the clerk of the board. You are responsible for contacting the applicable emergency and fire protection agency for medical services. And then it speaks to certain standards for security and water access.
Yes. Oh, and we have provided how that's, yes.
That's what he meant.
Okay, thank you.
It sounds like you agree with those. So,
Yes, we
okay, good. Just wanted to make sure on that. Any other items for discussion by any of the board members?
Nothing from me.
Do one of the rare times I'll make a motion to approve I got the wrong number here. TU 2022-047 Rodeo and Entertainment with the conditions as outlined in the staff report. Is there a second?
I would like to second that.
Thank you. Have a motion for approval and a second. Rosalie, would you please take roll call vote?
Member Cardin,
Yes.
Member Ward,
Yes.
Chairman Loper.
Yes.
Chairman, that's an approval by a vote of 3-0.
Good luck with your
Thank
endeavors.
Mr. Chairman, before we proceed to the next case, could I would like to advise the chair and the board members that agenda item number 9, Weiss Family Trust, we have a verbal announcement from the applicant to continue that item to the December board. So no actions necessary. We just want to put that on the record.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to agenda item number 8, which is TU 2022-048, known as the Cowboy Mounted Shooting, also in the Tonopah area, in District 5. And it's over for staff presentation. Martin, good to see you again.
Good to see you as well. Good morning, members of the board. This is case TU 2022-048, Cowboy Mounted Shooting. The property owner is requesting to extend an extension of a TUP that allows arena-mounted horse shooting training in a rural 43 zoning district. The subject site is located at 3499 North 359th Avenue in the Tonopah area on a 5.9 acre site. The current temporary use on the property was approved on May 19th, 2022, and was determined by the zoning administrator during that time as an appropriate short-term temporary use not to exceed a 6-month duration. In the interim, the property owner was able to obtain a special use permit for a long-term zoning entitlement and ongoing use of the site. So that was kind of the intent of issuing this temporary use permit, is that for the applicant to submit for a special use permit for this use. Pretty much on that, the special use permit was submitted by the applicant and recently is now going to be on the next Planning and Zoning Commission hearing, and then it will be on the Board of Supervisors a month after that. All right. So next slide, please. The property owner is a professional horse trainer and coach who specializes in training individuals to shoot firearms at targets while riding horses. The operation trains 5 to 10 individuals per month. The lessons take place in a purposely built arena where the individual shoots 2 or 3 patterns in a 20-second practice run. Then the targets are replaced and the rider reloads for another 20-second practice run that takes place on the site. The training does not use live ammunition since this poses a disturbance for neighbors, and instead will use only half blanks, which will eliminate the percussion that emanate from the live ammunition. Next slide, please. Staff recommends denial of the requested TUP extension. The longer-term zoning entitlement in the form of a special use permit is much more appropriate for this continued use and activity on the site. Considering this, staff urges the board not to consider an extension longer than 3 months if they wish to approve this, which the applicant would be in favor of since her special use permit case is now scheduled for the December Board of Supervisors. At which point, if the special use permit has not been approved, the use and/or activity must cease and desist. Staff so far has a total of 7 letters of opposition against this TUP extension and 8 letters of support in favor of the extension of the TUP. The previous temporary use permit administrative appeal was appealed by the neighbors after it got approved. So arguably, the temporary use permit presents a concern for the residential harmony of the neighborhood, and the development has an interpretation that states this fact. The ongoing use and/or activity should be subject of a special use permit with robust public participation process to allow a well-informed legislative decision by the Board of Supervisors. Staff is of the opinion that the applicant has not satisfied the requirements of the zoning ordinance regarding temporary horse-mounted shooting training, and as such, staff recommends denial of the temporary use permit. It is not the intent of the temporary use permit to act as a longer-term zoning entitlement. For reasons outlined in the report, staff are recommending to the board at this time to deny TU 2022-048. However, if the board chooses to recommend approval, staff offers the following conditions listed as A through E in the staff report for the board to consider. This concludes my presentation, and thank you, members of the board.
Thank you, Mr. Martell. Great presentation. I do have a question. So they have an existing temporary use permit.
Correct.
That expires when again?
October 17th.
October 17th, so next Monday. And they have a special use permit that's going through the process now, has not gone to Planning Commission yet.
It will be going to Planning Commission in November.
And then presumably the board in December.
Correct.
If it's, how does that work if we deny the extension of the temporary use permit or a new temporary use permit to pick up where the one expires next Monday? If we did not approve that, do they have to cease operations until the board takes a determination or an action?
Right. If the board denies this today, on October 17th, the temporary use permit that was assigned from 6 months ago will expire. They'll have to cease and desist until the Board of Supervisors chooses to, approve the special use permit for the site.
Okay. All right.
And another fact to probably consider as well, there is an existing code violation on the property as well for this use going on without entitlement.
Okay.
It should be important to kind of bring that up.
Go ahead, Darren.
There was a zoning violation.
There was.
It's closed. They ceased operations after they had the judgment against them. They paid that non-compliance fine. They obtained a temporary use permit separate from the closed zoning violation, allows them to operate through October 17th.
Okay. All right. Thank you for the clarification.
If they continue operating after October 17th, it will be a zoning violation.
Okay. Any questions of staff by any board member?
Nothing from me.
All right. Go ahead and open the public hearing. Is the applicant or applicant representative in attendance wish to speak? Please just provide your name for the record and go ahead with your presentation.
Hi, my name is Carrie Hirschberg. So I live at 3499 North 359th Avenue. Here's our presentation. I did want to clarify something. So live ammunition is never ever used in the sport. So what he meant to say was full loads are the certified ammo that is used for cowboy mounted shooting. And that is what the ordinance was created against, was actual cowboy mounted shooting, which uses the certified full loads. So I will be going over that. So I'll go ahead and do this presentation, and I have a little bit to address after that. So I'm just going to go over why I'm here today. I'm going to explain cowboy mounted shooting a little further because it is something that most people are not aware of. So, and then I'm going to go over the half load versus the full load. And then what I do the training lessons and clinics. And then, so next slide, please, sorry. And then I'll kind of recap. And you can go to the next slide. Okay, so so we used to live in Mesa. We in the heart of Lehigh. They have an arena at the back of their church. And I used to train out of there using full loads. The community was very supportive. I'm a horse trainer by nature. I needed more than 1.5 acres of land. So we found some nice acreage out in Tonopah for a ranch. We live on 359th, which is about almost a half-mile road. And it's full of ranches, 10-acre ranches. There's a commercial horse camp, an RV camp there that is absolutely busting at the seams full in the wintertime. We think that's very exciting. This whole, our whole neighborhood, that whole 359th Street was created for equine sport. The reason why it is developed is because of the horse camp and because of horse sports. There's several arenas on that road, and all of them in the past or present have held roping jackpots. There's a lot of activity with trucks and trailers, and especially with that commercial horse camp there. And it is permitted, it's legal, and that's one of the reasons why we moved out there was because, of that camp. I've had clients stay there before when I wasn't even performing the act at our arena. The other thing is, so in Lehigh, in Mesa, I didn't even know there was an ordinance against shooting. Nobody said we couldn't do it. So I didn't even know there was an ordinance. We move out to Tonopah, which everybody thinks it's like the end of the earth out there. And so we moved out there, and then we learned of the ordinance as they mentioned to you, we did have a violation against us. We did not know there was, so we ceased and desisted. So I was in touch with the county. I said, what do I need to do to make this possible? Because I will not use certified ammo. I'll use quiet or blanks, but I just do minimal training, and I need to be able to carry on my livelihood. I'm just a very small business entrepreneur, and I'm servicing the community and horse enthusiasts. So they said to apply for a special use permit. I said, whoa, that is such a long, tedious process. So they said, well, in the interim, since it is a long process, you can apply for a temporary use permit. So the whole intention of the original temporary use permit 2022012, was to kind of back up to the special use permit process. Now, as you guys know, the special use permit process is very long. And so just my time ran out. So now I've paid my fees, I've gone through the whole process, and now all I need is an extension for 3 months till the final hearing of the special use permit. So that's really all I'm asking for today is just an extension of 3 months. Okay. All right. So that's why I'm here today. Next slide, please. Okay, so a little background, cowboy mounted shooting. So what we do is we have 2 single action 45s, and there's a total of 10 targets, 5 of one color, 5 of the other. And we're riding around on the horse. We go across the timer and we shoot 5 targets with 1 gun, 1 single action gun, and then we holster that gun, draw the other, and we shoot another 5 targets. We cross the timer. Whoever has the fastest time with the least amount of misses wins, or penalties wins that stage. So that's kind of just the, what mounted shooting is. It's an equine sport. It's no different than, team roping where they have a bunch of stinky, noisy cattle. So it's just another equine sport. So what we shoot, I wasn't able to bring it in here. It's just a little, the ammo, it's crimped at the end. It's got some black powder in it, and then it sets the primer off and the end just opens up. So there's no projectile, there's no discharge, there's nothing to clean up. The shells don't leave our gun. We have to physically take them out and put them in a recycling bucket. So there's nothing, we're not imposing on the environment or anything at all. The full loads, that are certified blanks, they reach 15 feet. I do not shoot those. There's no need to shoot those. And I'll get to that in a second. Next slide, please. So cowboy mounted shooting, it's a fast growing, exciting sport. It requires a lot of horsemanship. And so what I train on at my ranch is I focus on the horsemanship aspect, and I'll get on that at a future slide. It was actually founded here in Arizona by Jim Rogers. So it was founded right here in Scottsdale, Arizona. It's very big here in the wintertime, just like roping is big here. There's a lot of the majors of our sport is held in Queen Creek. So it's a very popular sport. Next slide, please. Oh, and so on the former slide, it is a sanctioned sport. It's a sanctioned sport held by a governing body, the American Quarter Horse Association. So there's a lot of merit to that. So now I'm going to be talking about the blanks. So you can see I talked about the blanks. I actually have ammo that is actually half that size, or it can be that size with half the amount of powder. So like I said, the full loads, the certified, what the ordinance was created for. It was for a full load, which does have a lot of percussion, and it goes 15 feet. However, I'm just seeking the extension for continuing to use the half loads, which really only travel 10 feet. It's always windy where we live, so it doesn't always go that far. The full loads are used for competition. Half loads are typically only used for like a little bit of time when people are gun breaking horses. I only had a few of them. And so whenever I went through this whole process with the neighbors, I had to wait quite a few weeks to get a special order in because it's not typically used. Through using the half loads, I'm still able to create the mounted shooting experience for the horses and the riders. So for what's important for me, so I train horses for everything. I used to do a lot of jumping. I got a horse going and sold it for a client for jumping. I had somebody come last night for a jumping lesson. So I can teach on everything. I can teach dressage lessons. A lot of people come for me for basic horsemanship. But mounted shooting, so this is just kind of one of my cross training endeavors. So I could compete in any discipline. Mounted shooting is such a fun family sport. I got my husband into it. Our kid does it. So I'll probably be doing it forever because it's just so family friendly, unlike some of the other sports that just aren't family cumbersome. And so that's why we really push this. We're able to do it as a family. We're able to help other families get involved. I'm a big supporter, just like a lot of people in the neighborhood are, of the equine industry. We want to keep it alive. We want to keep it thriving. I want people to get involved in horses and stay involved in horses. And my big thing is promoting riders to be safe and effective. If they want to do mounted shooting, they can do mounted shooting. If they don't want to, I don't care. My thing is I teach riders to be safe and effective, and that's what they come to me, and then they get hooked because they're like, now I can do other things and be safe on a horse. So I just did a lesson this morning. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so I kind of got ahead of myself. So again, like I said, I do a lot of other training, but the cross training portion that we're addressing today is the mounted shooting utilizing only half loads. And so I get I have about 3 to 5 horses in training each month. And just a few of those, like I have a few right now, they're not even for mounted shooting training. They're just for all around horsemanship training or jumping. But I have about, 3 to 5 in training each month, and it wavers how many are in for mounted shooting. It's always a revolving door. I'm a trainer, so horses get trained and then they leave. And then a new one fills its spot, hopefully. And so kind of the process for, usually I have to gun break a horse. So what I do is I'll just have a little CO2, little gun, and then I'll start out with, after I have them handling well underneath of me and trained, have a good foundation, then I will start with the CO2 gun, which is just a little poof, you know, it's just a little percussion or compression, I mean. So I'll do that. And then after they're desensitized to that, I do sometimes do the, like a 22 construction shot, like what they use in an air gun, you know, for a nail gun. So sometimes I'll do that because it's so cheap. Because honestly, every shot, you saw the ammo, every shot is almost 70 cents. So it's expensive. So I'll get to this, like, it's not like I'm doing this forever. It's not an ongoing thing. It's actually really expensive. And it's a lot of work for me too. So it's not like, especially if we have to set the balloons and everything, it's a lot of work. So it's not something that is ever ongoing, and it's quite limited. So after, sometimes I do the 22, sometimes I don't, and then I do go to the half load. And so honestly, like I said, the big thing for me is I'm foundational training. I like the training part of it. The mounted shooting is kind of the after effect. I'm not banging away on the horses every day. I'm riding in the arena 6 hours a day, at least. From, get up at 4:45, I'm on the horse by 7:10 after I drop my kid off from school, and I'm on getting off the horse at 2 o'clock. Then I go pick him up. So I see everything that's happening in the neighborhood. I see everything that's happening in the state land. I see everything because I'm in that arena outside working horses. So I can attest to what does happen or does not happen in our neighborhood. So I do have a link of training, of me doing some training horses. You can just click on that YouTube link. So that way you guys can see what it is. And this is just me during the week. I don't do it very often. It should be clickable. It's not? Okay. I can talk while she's doing that. So like I said, the shooting part is actually the cumbersome part. It's just something I have to do in order to do the cross training. And so I only do the gunfire like 0 to 3 times a week. For if the horse is just getting introduced to it, you know, then I'll do it, you know, once or twice during the week. So here's just a short video clip. Here I finally got 3 horses ready to go. I've already done the CO2 gun and the 22, and you might want to turn on the sound. And so it's just a simple process. The max I can hold in my guns is 6 shots each, so a total of 12 shots. Then I literally have to stop. If I'm gun breaking a horse, like I did one yesterday, well, 2 yesterday. One, it was its first time, and I only did 12 shots off of it for the whole session, and I rode it for about 45 minutes. So that's all I'm asking for. I do lessons. I do a lot of, you know, I do private lessons. I only do group lessons if it's like a clinic. So like I said, I'm super rider focused. Like this morning, I had a client in from out of town, and she took a total of 20 shots off of her horse. She did one pattern and did it twice. It was a total of 20 shots in the matter of 15, 20 minutes, and that was it. And then I left to come here. I do clinics. Honestly, I've been doing a lot more lately because I don't know if my rights are going to get taken away from me or not. So my students are like, we don't want to miss a weekend, because I don't know, you know, if it gets taken away from me or not. So I do clinics. They last 3 hours. They're exhausting. They're very hard on the rider because I make them work and become better horsemen, better riders. So 80% of the clinic is dedicated to advancing their horsemanship. That's what everybody comes to me for. There's other shooters in the valley or other trainers, but people come to me for this reason. We go through exercises. We go through dry fire drills where we emulate clicking through the gun through the patterns, because they're all learning their patterns. There's about 70 patterns that we do. And then the remaining 20% is where we'll actually set up a course. We'll engage it. Everybody will go through that once, maybe twice if they messed up. The goal is to get it done in one shot and be done. And then usually I only set up 2 patterns whenever I do a clinic because we're all tired. So in summary of my PowerPoint presentation, I've been doing everything legally. I've been going through the steps that the county has told me to go through. Just that the special use permit process is taking a very long time, even though it is going along and I've met all the deadlines and everything. I just need 3 more months. So that's all I'm requesting. I do not use the certified for full loads, and that's what the whole ordinance was for the full loads. I use the special quieter half loads. It eliminates the percussion. And like I said, we're located in an equine community. Our whole neighborhood was developed for equine purposes. And so it's Western horse sports thrive there, especially in the wintertime. And so with the ability to cross-train horses and riders for the sport of cowboy mounted shooting, I'm able to serve the needs of the community. And honestly, it's really good for Tonopah. It's really good for the West Valley. There's nobody in the West Side that is able to offer this service because there's no arenas that you're able to do it in. Whenever I was told cease and desist originally, I was like, whoa, I got to train out of somewhere. So I went to all the local arenas and I told them my situation. They're like, well, we have to have we'll look into it. They all have to have a special use permit. They have to have proper entitlements because of that ordinance. So just because there's an arena doesn't mean you're able to do it because of that one ordinance. And so it's not like I can just go anywhere. I can't. So I'm like, well, I'll just get it from my own property because I can't just go anywhere that I want to go to or go to another arena. It's impossible because of an ordinance. And then since I'm educated on the county, and they're like, whoa, we don't want to do anything wrong. So now I'm stuck. Now I'm out in no man's land, not even be able to do what I want to do. So that's my PowerPoint presentation. You know why I'm here. I've dedicated over $6,000 to the county, going through the processes. I work very hard for every dollar that I earn. And so it was not easy for me to do that. And so you guys said that you got several opposition letters and several support letters. And so I actually want to go through those because the opposition letters, I actually went and talked to a lot of those people who did oppose. So I don't know, did you guys read through those letters?
We do. And Ms. Hirschberg, there's a number of speakers that we have that would, that may want to speak to the letters. I don't know if they match the letters one-to-one, but if you could kind of wrap up your presentation in the next 30 seconds or so.
Okay. Yeah, so I actually did bring a map of the neighbors that do support and not support. And so I'm actually do I get to talk about the letters because I was provided the information. So I'll go ahead and briefly cap one of the, Donna was one of the opposers. And honestly, she hasn't left her house in years. They used to hold a bunch of jackpot ropings there and they quit whenever she kind of went a little crazy. She doesn't even open the curtains to her house. So the fact that they got a letter and to say what she said is totally not true. I have neighbors closer than that you cannot hear it within their house. There's 2 people here from the same address and I can go through their accusations. Pretty much everything's false. They are bigger violators themselves than us. They're saying that their residence is 120 feet from our arena. Not true. I walked it off last night. Their property fence is 220 feet. There is an illegal garage. There is a garage that was converted into an illegal house where their mother-in-law lives. And so that may be where they can hear it inside of that, but it is not a closed residential building. And so I just want to touch on some of this because their house is actually 500 feet away.
Ms. Hirschberg?
Yes.
It may be more appropriate. We do allow for rebuttal.
Okay.
If those persons want to speak. That way you kind of can keep it addressing people who speak to it at a different
Fine.
part of that, if you're okay.
Yeah, that's totally fine.
All right. Is there any questions of the applicant?
I have none.
It was a great presentation. I learned a lot about it that I did not know before that. I am going to start addressing some of the people that have requested to speak. We're going to proceed with the in-person speakers. As I said, this is a public hearing, and then we'll go to those that have registered online. I have 4 cards. I'll just address them in the order they were provided to me. The first one is by Michelle Hawley, who expresses opposition and does say that she wishes to speak. If you could come on up and provide your name for the record and try to limit your comments to 3 minutes or less.
I'm Michelle Hawley. I'm the direct neighbor to the Hirschbergs. And I did bring a link that I think she can start playing. It does have sound. This is the
Is a speaker on the...
I believe we have access to audio on the videos.
I did bring my iPad with them on there. It really needs to be heard, the sound, the disruptive gunfire in my home that I can hear in my own home.
I apologize that the sound isn't working, but I don't know that the iPad through a microphone is going to really...
I could set it up there and everybody would still hear it.
You know, we're trying to see if we can work through something.
Mr. Chairman, I do believe, though, she can use her, if she wants to use her time to play the iPads.
Okay.
She can, although we'll probably get it working now.
I'll give it a minute before I grab it.
We now have full faith and confidence.
Okay. Do you want me to just kind of stand somewhere with it or?
Right there is good.
Turn on the sound. We could.
Yeah, if you can just turn on the sound.
Yeah, I don't know, that's the first time.
It'll continue. Oh, goodness gracious. Oh, please. The internet.
Yeah. Technology is great when it
It
works.
is, it is. Hand me my cell phone. It's still trying to go through your internet.
Ma'am, you may have better luck using the cellular data than the internet.
Yeah, I'm doing that now.
Yeah, I don't know, that's the first time.
The next video coming up is the ones in my home and on my front porch. That's my front porch. These are just different days. It's in my home. My dogs aren't up here. Yes. This is up the street at the neighbor's house, and he is present today. That's all I have, I think, on there. I think that was the last one.
How long is your video?
They're all different videos.
Okay.
They're all different days. They're all time stamped at the top.
But they're pretty, what we've seen so far is pretty representative of what it's like inside, outside, adjacent to it.
It's constant, yeah. It's very disruptive. We've been going through this since they moved in a couple years ago. We've been there for about 9 years. I too myself ride. Her horses might be used to the gunfire. Mine are definitely not. It's the noise. I have two grandchildren, they're 3 and 6. And my 6-year-old now is telling me that Mima's house is scary because of the gunfire, which is heartbreaking to me because it was been such a quiet community until they started with this. There are facilities for this activity, and it's just not appropriate in a residential neighborhood. The noise is just overwhelming, overwhelming. And when you're in your own home and you hear that, it's very startling. You know, and at some point, I don't think anybody should be used to gunfire, and then to hear it on the constant, when you do get used to it and something is really happening, you're just not going to pay no mind to what. It's very disruptive, and we are strongly opposed to any extension for this activity.
All right, thank you. Any questions of the speaker by any of the board members?
How far away do you live?
We're about 100. She says 500. We're about 140 feet. And it shows on my front porch. That's our fence right there, and I can see them in their arena riding. So I'm the direct neighbor right next door.
Common property line?
We have a small easement in the center, but I am directly next to them.
Okay. You're the home to the north that's shown on the video screen?
Correct. Yeah, I'm to the north.
Okay.
And we're on 11 acres. They're actually on 4.6.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, the next speaker card I have is from Jeff Friday. If you provide your name for the record, please.
Yes. Good morning. My name is Jeff Friday, and I own property at 35924 West Weldon Avenue. And that is north and a little west of the property, over 100 yards. And in my TU letter, I noted 4 things: the dust, the noise, the traffic, and the declining property values. So back in, I think, early June, Trevor Hirschberg came by to knock on my door and introduce himself. And he told me that they had stopped with the full loads and were now using half loads. And so I told him about my concerns, and he is not from Arizona, so he was not aware of the issue with dust. Here in Arizona, dust in the air will create a valley fever condition that affects both children, adults, and animals, and it's a lifetime condition. So in talking with Trevor, I also mentioned my concern about them using loud rap music and loud rock and roll music for their horse training. And he told me that no, they don't use the loud rock and roll and rap music that I could hear out in the desert. And he would do this at 7 in the morning. And he said, that's not for horse training, that's to annoy his neighbor. And that taught me a lot about the character of the man and his vindictive character. And the 3 neighbors to my right all have families and children, and they're opposed to the noise, but did not want to get involved. And I don't know if that was because they're familiar with Trevor and his history of restraining orders, but they're opposed to the noise, but they did not write any letters and did not want to get involved. And I had a dog that was very sensitive to 4th of July fireworks and sensitive to the black powder training noise. And my concern is both for myself in my house and in my garage where I can hear the noise. As you heard on the video, that was my property that the recording was on, and the trauma that it does to animals. So those are my 4 concerns: dust, noise, traffic, and declining property values. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Any questions of the speaker?
None from me, thank you.
All right. The third speaker I have is Sean Hawley. Apologize, I probably should have called you right after. Do you wish to speak? Okay, even though, all right, so he does not wish to speak this time. I have another card from Jeffrey Ryan Clark. Okay, go on up. And that, yeah, what I was telling you was wait, I was going to offer an opportunity for everybody to speak, but
oh, sure.
You were.
And what I was wanting to ask, and not to discredit their video at all, but it appeared that the video from inside the house, was your guys' front door open when you took that video from inside? I would.
Hey, I'd rather keep the conversations.
Sure.
So please don't direct questions.
Sorry about that.
No worries.
My name is Ryan Clark. I'm a neighbor close to Carrie's residence. I live right on Mitchell Drive. First, I would like to start off saying thank you to everyone coming today for this important matter. Whether you are against this, whether you're for or against this matter, I understand the importance of hearing everyone's concerns and arguments, and hope all of you feel the same. I would like to start off by saying I have no interest in cowboy mounted shooting. I do not have any interest in horses, farm activities, but I do understand, I understood when moving to Tonopah that this is a horse riding community. When I first moved to my home in September 2021, I was unaware of the cowboy mounted shooting taking place. I would see the occasional horse riders, horse trailers, and I'm always sure to give a friendly wave. It wasn't until I received a knock on my door at 9 a.m. on a Saturday from a disgruntled neighbor that the cowboy mounted shooting was even taking place. I was told by the neighbor that it was my right to complain, and I asked while standing at my front door while the shooting was taking place, complain about what? And the neighbor replied, to the Hirschberg's shooting. To which I looked over and replied, well, I'm not going to complain about something that I wasn't even aware of until you brought it up to me. We left with a friendly goodbye, but it did raise a concern with me. I asked myself, I thought we lived in a community that supports activities like this. I also asked myself, how can someone who lives farther away from the Hirschbergs than I do possibly complain about the noise? It is incredibly subtle. So is it really the noise, or is it the complaint really about what they are doing? And it's a fair question. Should our neighbors be cowboy mounted shooting from their property? Should the Hirschbergs be issued a permit to do this? These are all perfectly reasonable questions. And after careful thought and consideration, I came to the conclusion that yes, this should be allowed. For one, this type of activity is excuse me. For one, if this type of community is not allowed in Tonopah, then where else in Arizona could it possibly take place? Tonopah to me is the perfect place for activities like these. Again, this is a horse community, and I would be ashamed of myself if I were to attempt to prevent the joy of many in hopes to please the few. I can tell you as having one of the closest homes to the Hirschbergs, that is, to say the least, a minor inconvenience. This is such a wonderful thing that the Hirschbergs offer to our community and our youth that far exceeds any inconvenience that I might derive from it. The Hirschbergs and the activities that they offer to the community are an asset to Tonopah and should not be prevented from offering these activities to our residents and youth so carelessly. I'll be brief. I have one more paragraph. I would also like to congratulate some of the opposing residents for being humorous, if only unintentionally. As some of them stated that the Cowboy Mountain shooting causes their dogs to bark. This is a ridiculous argument, and I'm sorry to say an outright lie, in that the dogs in our neighborhood bark 24/7. We've all been there. And this is a serious issue and concern in on itself. And I cannot believe that we are here not talking about that today. I cannot sit on my own back porch out of sight without hearing the sound of dogs' neighbors barking, which I find far more disturbing to our community than a few hours per week that the Hirschbergs are asking for all of our consideration in. To those who let the dogs outside to bark nonstop 7 days a week and have the audacity to write in a complaint letter about the occasional noise coming from the Hirschbergs should be ashamed of yourselves. The hypocrisy there is so thick that I have to ask the board member to remove this complaint from their consideration on this matter. On a final note, today I ask the board and all the members of our community to carefully consider your decision, because every opportunity you deny, every door you close, you are in essence sharpening the knife for your own back, because you are also denying yourself and your family and friends the right to enjoy not only these activities, but the similar activities as well. I hope we can all leave here today with a word of compromise in mind. The Hirschbergs have already made many compromises in this matter, and I have personally not seen or heard any compromise of the opposing neighbors. I know it would mean the world to the Hirschbergs and many others to allow the renewal of their permit. And I thank everyone for coming today.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions of the speaker?
For me, thank
All right, thank you. That's the last of my speaker cards. Is there anyone else in the audience? Come on. Oh, I've got a card for you. Yeah, if you could hand your card to Rosalie and then provide your name for the record.
Been sitting a long time.
If you could limit your comments to 3 minutes or less, it'd be appreciated.
Okay. My name is Anita Fogelsong. I live at 35912 West Weldon Avenue, just east of Jeff Friday. When I first started hearing the shooting, I was extremely disturbed. And my husband and I are retired, so we're home all day. My husband is also a horse advocate. He team ropes. We've used this neighborhood as a horse sport for 24 years. It was not designed as a horse neighborhood. It evolved into one. And we've enjoyed many activities. And I'm not opposed to cowboy shooting in any way, but the noise is extremely disturbing. I'm a quilter. I use sharp tools. And I have a room in my home, and we can hear the shooting, and it raises our heart rate. We've been where there's live fire. It's not a comforting sound. And she gives lessons, fine, but this will be shooting lessons to other people. And there are other people in the neighborhood who would like to avail themselves of her training, and I'm sure she's very good. And so I just want to say I'm not used to being in front of my phone, but I want to say that the noise level inside my home with my television going and my husband is hard of hearing, it's very disturbing. And I just would like to have you consider that. And there are many other retired people in our neighborhood, also horse oriented. It's true. We have a very wonderful neighborhood, been very peaceful. I've known almost all of my neighbors for about 20 years or more. And that's just what I want to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any questions of the speaker?
None from me.
All right. Is there anyone else in attendance who wishes to speak on this item? Seeing none, Rachel, David, those that are registered online, do we have any speakers?
Chairman Loper, we're not aware of anyone online that wishes to speak.
Okay, I'm going to close the public, well, Ms. Hirschberg, I'd give you 2 minutes for rebuttal.
Yeah, so I've actually talked to both the neighbors that were just, well, tried to talk to the Hollies as well, but they won't talk to us. Whenever we switched to the half loads, I talked to Anita because the Hollies lied to me, telling me that they were not the ones who turned us into the county after they told us. The county originally told us to work it out with our neighbors. They really didn't care what we were doing out there. I tried to talk with them. They were unreasonable. So I went and addressed a neighbor that I thought who would not like it, and I thought that would be Anita. So I said, hey, did you turn me in? And she said, no, I actually cannot hear the half loads in my house. The article is against hearing it within inside your house, and the noise ordinance that it was created for is about hearing. It shall be unlawful to allow to originate from the property any noise which disturbs the peace or quiet any neighborhood if such noise can be heard from within the closed residential structure located within 500 feet. You know, he's one of our near neighbors. He cannot hear it inside of his house. And so I just want to keep that noted that we are following the guidelines. They actually have an audio surveillance camera, so they're able to magnetize everything. They stalk us. And so they like to magnetize, you know, everything we do on our property, every conversation we make through audio cameras on the edge of their property line. Anyways, I'm just seeking the 3-month extension and let the final, the special use permit hearing, you know, be the determining factor. Whether I cease and desist or I'm able to continue on with my minimal training hours. Literally all I do is 0 to 3 days a week. And it's for, like you saw, minimal time. The video she showed of me shooting off a horse was taken literally 5 feet away. Trevor was taking the video of me. That's why it sounded like that. And then they are able to amplify other sounds. One of the first videos she had, I actually have on my phone. I had just was allowed the temporary use permit. And so I was using, I wasn't able to shoot there for a long time. And so, like I said, we don't shoot half loads. And so I had half loads from an ammo maker, from a few different ammo makers. And I was like, whoa, that sounded loud. I text Rudy, who lives next to him, because I'm able to talk to these guys. They won't let me talk to them. And so I can't reason with them. I can't even go to something you can barely hear because I can't talk to them and you know, come to a common ground. So I said, he's like, yeah, I could hear that. I'm like, he's like, but it doesn't bother me. I'm like, no, that's not the point. You shouldn't be able to hear it. So I trashed those and I said, okay, I'm going to shoot again and I'm using a different load or a different, you know, provider. And he's like, yeah, I couldn't hear it. And they have a little baby and kids and stuff. So I was like, great, that's all I need to know. Carried on. So I'm very cognizant of the neighborhood. Anita talked, she said she's been there for 20 years. She knows a lot of other people have been there 20 years. Honestly, a lot of those people, majority of them, like, can't believe this is even happening in our neighborhood, as you saw from all the supporting letters. They think it's ridiculous that we have opposition in this type of a neighborhood. Okay, thank you.
I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
So you do, is the training you do strictly in regard to the shooting? Or do you do other kind of training?
I do other kind of training, but I do specialize in the cowboy mounted shooting. So like when I compete, it's not for jumping anymore. It's not for barrels anymore. It's for mounted shooting.
And is the scheduling or the holding of that particular type of training, is it scattered throughout the week? Is there?
So the time frame, I go off the noise ordinance. So I don't shoot before 8 o'clock. If I do a clinic, I usually start them at 7 o'clock because it's been hot. So we're on riding at 7 and that goes an hour and a half or 2 hours. And then usually we're not shooting till like 9. And then that'll go to about 10:30.
So is it just mornings? Is it 5 days a week in mornings or?
No, like I said, it's from not shooting at all during the week to possibly 3 times during the week. It has been once on the weekend because that's whenever I'm able to do a clinic because people aren't working. And then during the week, it's just me. Like during the weekend, a few people haul in, it's couples, they haul in together. But during the week, it's just me training personal training horses. So there's no other activity. It's super minimal. I work every horse for half an hour to 45 minutes. So within that, I have to warm up the horse. And then, like I said, it's usually 12 shots off of a horse if I'm gun breaking them. If they are to the patterning portion, I'll just do one pattern. And I try to do a symmetrical one so I can do it one way and then do it the other way and be done. Because I have to charge every shot I take to the client. Like, it's not cheap. So it's not something I do continuously. It's a lot of work to do it. And so it's something I try to keep at a minimal level. So she showed you that video, and I have like a screenshot of my phone where I was talking to the neighbor. I was like, hey, you know, that was loud. What the heck? And so then I went with a different provider, and I can do less and less. I have a strong relationship with an ammo provider, so I'm willing to do that.
Right. Is it possible, I'm just throwing this out there, is it possible to try to do it on a regular enough schedule that you could let the neighbors know? And I'm not advocating this would or wouldn't happen, but you say like, hey, it's going to be Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday from these times only, or could you self-regulate so that people understood this is going to be happening during these specific times?
I'm absolutely for stipulations. Like, I want this to work. I'm not trying to be unreasonable. I do value our neighbors, our neighborhood, and our community. I'm trying to be a viable asset to the community and respect everybody. Like I said, if I need to go to a quarter load, I will. You know, I'm just trying to, you know, service people in the West Valley. And so I can definitely do time stipulations. Like I said, I do it 1 to 3 days a week, one day for sure. On the weekend it's been, because again, I'm like, I can't take a weekend off because it might be taken away from me. So that's crucial time. Again, I only have like 4 to 8 people. It's usually right around 5. And then I may hop on a training horse that I didn't ride during the shoot off on during the week because it's a lot of work. So I may just hop on and do a run or two. But yeah, so usually, like I said, I'm on a horse 6 hours a day. I'll usually knock out quite a few horses in the morning that don't do gun training if I happen to be shooting that day. And then I usually wait for the ones that I am shooting on to do a little bit later, you know, around 10 or so. In Arizona, we have to ride per the weather. So, you know, I start, plus my kid doesn't have school in the summertime, so I can start super early.
Right, definitely understood. Any other questions of the applicant?
Not questions. I have a lot of concerns.
Okay, Member Cardin, any questions at this point? All right, hang tight. We may or may not have other things for you. Close the public hearing, may or may not have been before. And I turn it over to the board for discussion. Member Ward, some comments?
I'm honestly torn because I too live on horse property. And I also live near a river bottom where there's hunting, and my dogs bark when they hear those noises. I got very offended when you said your neighbor Donna was crazy because she complained because she's in the house. If I was housebound, I think that would be the person who I would be most concerned about, because she has nowhere to go unless she puts in earplugs or turns her TV up. My instinct, my gut instinct at this point, seeing the video, is to turn this down because there's so many other methods of training that you do. I'm curious what the decibels are between the CO2 gun, a half load, a full load, a quarter load. As far as horse training, I think that it's necessary. It's agriculture, kids need it. It's something that I definitely promote. Not so much on the shooting from horses in a neighborhood, live load, half load, dead load, whatever it is. I'd like to hear other comments, please.
Chairman Loper?
Yes, go ahead, Member Cardin.
So I guess it's unfortunate to me that this is, you know, kind of dividing a neighborhood, and that's not great. For me, it almost comes down to A TUP is not, a temporary use permit is actually intended to be temporary and is not intended to be a long-term solution. Going back and forth and really kind of struggling with this as well, where I've kind of rested in my mind is a temporary use permit was granted. They went as far as they went with the special use permit, which was, I believe, the initial intent. I appreciate they were working towards that, but it's not done yet. So they're asking for a little more time in order to finish that. My thought is, however, that is the appropriate place to have this ultimately resolved is with a special use permit, and therefore not to give this, to deny this request, recognizing, sure, they need a little more time, but with all that's going on there and the strong emotions involved, that we ought to just allow that process to go through and not continue to extend time with a temporary use permit as that time has run out.
Thank you. A couple of comments I have. One, and this picture kind of, or this aerial photo kind of personifies this. There was a time where Tonopah was very low density. That's not the case anymore. We have friends that live in Tonopah, and it amazes me. The homes are popping up there, and this to me is a residential neighborhood. Even if the lots are 5 acres plus in size, the homes are fairly close to each other. Now I'm a gun guy, so gunfire itself doesn't bother me. Even in today's environment, though, I could see where the random shot probably piques everybody's interest in mine. You know, what happened? Is it something that's gonna, some terrible event or not? In this case, they know it's you. They likely know it's you. I do like that you're going through the special use permit process. That's proceeding on its own. It doesn't involve us. I am in favor of allowing an extension that is timed to the decision on the special use permit. Because to me, going back to I support small business, being able to do it till Monday, and then should the special use permit be approved in December, and then you have a 6-week hiatus or whatever, and then it starts again, what purpose did we really serve other than the neighbors? And I appreciate you coming here, and I do appreciate your concerns, because I don't know that I would want to be right next to that either. But I don't know if that 6-week hiatus really serves the purpose or not. Should this temporary use permit be extended, I would encourage you, because these are your neighbors, figure out some common ground, some way to break bread with them, to try to get them to be your allies, because I do entitlement work almost exclusively for longer than I want to admit. The special use permit process, there's no guarantee on that. And having lots of opposition, almost, it doesn't lend itself towards your favor. What I would encourage you to do if this gets approved, the temporary use permit, is work with these, find some common ground, some viable solution. Be it that you limit the dates and the hours that you do this, because you have neighbors. If you were on 40 acres, section of land, I would say do what you want, but you're not. You have neighbors next to you. You need to account for them. I would encourage you to try the quarter loads or the other options. There might be some things where they say, you know what? I didn't really hear that. And with my door closed and inside, I don't hear it. And if we limit the dates and the times to it, I can plan accordingly. Because if I heard that, if I was out in my garage and I heard that, even someone that's familiar with gunfire, I would still be a little bit taken aback. What caused that? Where'd that come from? Because maybe it isn't from you the occasional time, but if they knew, nope, that's before whatever times you said, I'm just trying to help you to maybe come up with some ways, because you're going to need to work through this on your others process too.
Right.
I think going forward, just as it is not going to be in your favor. But those are my comments on it. I'd like to see this work. I'd like to see it tied to the end of the expiration of the special use permit process. Can we do that, Darren or Wayne? Or does it have to be a time, or Tom? Does it have to be a time specific, or can we say once the gavel decision by the board that would end the temporary use permit regardless, because she'd either have the special use permit or she wouldn't?
Mr. Chairman, one reason it's probably important to have a specific date is because, as evidenced by a couple of cases today, special use permit can get continued.
Absolutely.
And we can't force it necessarily to be heard. We could pursue, if and there's not a zoning violation right now, there's a valid temporary use permit. So unless others disagree, I would suggest you have a specific date.
I see Tom nodding. Wayne, you agree?
You can do it legally either way. Darren makes a strong policy argument why a firm date would probably make more sense.
Okay. And having heard that, I tend to agree now. All right, I'll throw it back to board members for a possible motions in District 5. There's not a District 5 representative with us today. Oh, I apologize.
No, you go ahead, Bill. Go ahead.
Oh, I see that bus coming.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
So just so you know, November 3rd is the P&Z date is agendized. If they act on it that date, it would go to the first date in December, I think.
Sorry.
I don't have the calendar in front of me, but it'd be there's only one BOS date in December. If it gets continued by the P&Z, then it'll go to a January date. So just you want to keep that in mind.
Nothing. So 3 months you said could work. That would get us to the end of January, right?
So, Mr. Chairman, there's a stipulation that says
December 13th.
December 13th. So what I'm hearing is you may want to consider that being January 30th.
Again, my personal preference is to tie it with a likely decision on the special use permit, understanding that things get continued sometimes indefinitely and stuff. So what stipulation number is that, Darren? I saw.
Stipulation C ties the temporary use permit to December 13th, 2022.
All right, I will make a motion that we approve the temporary use permit, modifying stipulation C to be to January 31st, 2023, with a strong recommendation that you try to figure something out so that these folks could become an ally for you, or your special use permit's probably in jeopardy. My personal opinion. I don't know anything, but that's my personal opinion. So that's a motion I'm throwing out there.
Second.
I have a second by member Cardin. Any discussion?
Can we ask the members here if they are willing to work? Because
Yeah. Good point brought here. A comment to the neighbors, and we can't stipulate to this, but you're going to be neighbors if whether this proceeds indefinitely, the shooting, or it goes away. It'd be neighborly to try to work with her during this time, to talk to her, open your doors, and have her.
It would be more appropriate after you vote on the motion.
Okay.
You would have discussion, should be limited to the motion.
Okay. All right. Then I'll call for the question. Rosalie, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Member Cardin?
No.
Member Ward?
I'm going to go along with Member Cardin on that one. No.
Chairman Loper?
Yes.
Chairman, that's a denial by a vote of 2-1.
Mr. Chairman, I would recommend you entertain a motion to deny. Keep the record clean.
Okay. When you deny a motion in favor, there's some cloud as to what the action is.
Okay,
So,
because I actually wanted to second it for discussion only anyhow.
Okay.
So, okay. So what do I need to say?
Make a motion to deny request.
I make a motion to deny the request for TUP.
we have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Rosalie, would you please take a roll call vote?
Member Cardin?
Yes.
Member Ward?
Yes.
Chairman Loper?
No.
Chairman, that's a vote of 2-1 to deny the TUP.
Thank you. Sorry that happened to you, but my comment to the neighbors is this. This is not the end. This might be the temporary use permit, but there's another process. And just as she needs to try to work with you, you need to try to work with her, because as you go through the hearing process, if you closed your doors in your mind to considering what she's trying to do and alternatives, that's just as bad as her not trying to work with you. So there needs to be some discussion. It's just the right thing to do anyway. So I would just encourage you to do that. Yeah, we're adjourned, sorry. But yeah, if you want to come up and speak, that's fine.